Imagine being stuck in a hellish dimension for 3 decades. Just you against the wild, trusting no one until you finally crushed the ultimate monster king. Enter Chiolho Kang. After bathing in the blood of otherworldly beasts for an eternity, our guy finally touches down back on Earth. The catch? His home planet is currently crawling with the exact same creatures. Good thing he brought every ounce of his overpowered god-tier strength back with him. Rocking a supernatural stare that pierces through literally anything, he's not out here trying to play the hero. Nah, he's hunting apex predators for his next meal. To Kang, these walking nightmares are just walking groceries. Cut to a crumbling metropolis where emergency sirens are absolutely screaming through the wreckage. Static crackles over the radio class, 4 threats are tearing the place apart, and a lone operative is rushing to the drop zone. Boom. The broadcast cuts out as grotesque beasts pulverize the comms tower, turning concrete into dust. Right on cue, our hunter sprints straight into the chaos. He halts. It's not just one target, it's an entire pack, and their chests are swelling up like grotesque balloons ready to pop. A deafening, glass-shattering screech rips through the ruins. The hunter braces himself, realizing 10 of these things screaming at once will literally liquefy his eardrums. Not backing down, he erupts. A massive pillar of violet aura blasts into the clouds with terrifying momentum. That raw magic morphs into a massive glowing whip, locking dead onto a target. Eyes locked, he smirks, betting this beast already knows its time is up. But wait, a blinding flash erupts from the heavens, forcing everyone to snap their heads skyward. An absolute nuke of pure energy rains down, vaporizing the monster's skull on impact. The hunter just stands there, completely dumbfounded by the orbital strike. A female operative drops in, hyping up her captain for wiping the floor with the pack, in one shot. He shakes his head. That definitely wasn't his doing. He doesn't pack insane area of effect damage like the legendary Blade Queen. They both just stare at the smoking crater, trying to process the absolute slaughter. He questions if command deployed backup, but she confirms they are totally solo. It makes 0 sense. Nobody in the entire Korean database hits that hard. Her eyes then widen. The mysterious sniper literally left the priceless monocores sitting in the dirt. Checking out the surgical precision of the kills, the captain knows a pro did this. But what on earth is their endgame? Snapping back to reality, he orders her to bag the loot and radio the hazmat boys for cleanup. Scanning the apocalyptic wasteland, something super out of place catches his eye. A tiny, old-school joint with a beat-up sign that just says, Eatery. Chuckling to himself, he notes that a single miscalculation would have flattened the diner. Letting out a heavy sigh, he decides he desperately needs a cold beer. Meanwhile, our overpowered main character steps out onto a rooftop patio. Grinning like he hasn't a care in the world, he casually wipes some crumbs off his chin. He strolls down the fire escape and slides right into that exact same retro diner. Hitting the kitchen, he slams a button, firing up some seriously high-tech culinary gear. Our guy tosses a heavy skillet onto the burners. Peering through a magical monocle, he scans the massive slab of monster protein he just harvested. He slaps the prime cut onto the cutting board, cracking his knuckles to get down to business. Facing the stove, he runs through some recipes in his head. Did he totally overdo it and bag way too much Velto flesh? Stroking his chin, he figures dehydrating the leftovers into some apocalyptic beef jerky is the move. Out of nowhere, a heavy knock rattles the front door, with someone shouting for Mr. Chiolho Kang. Standing outside is a suit from the National Hunter Association. The guy gives a quick briefing about the recent monster wave, assuring him the threat is neutralized. It's just a standard wellness check for civilians, which our chef nods along to perfectly. Flashing a casual smile, Kang notes it is a ghost town anyway, so casualties were basically 0. Mid-sentence, a bizarrely mouth-watering aroma hits the agent's nose, completely stopping him in his tracks. Leaning in like a bloodhound, he takes a massive whiff, absolutely blown away by the heavenly scent. Kang just gestures around. Duh, it's a kitchen. The agent's stomach instantly betrays him with a loud growl, prompting him to beg for a quick breakfast after fasting since sunrise. The classic door chime rings out as the suit steps into the dining room. Scanning the retro aesthetic, the guy is utterly fascinated. He swears the vibe feels ripped straight out of a vintage 90s sitcom. He asks for a menu, but our overpowered chef shoots that down. He only serves whatever fresh kills he bags that morning. The suit figures it's an omakase-style deal, and Kang smirks in agreement. Today's exclusive special? A perfectly seared Velto steak. Hearing the word, Velto drops the agent's jaw to the floor. His brain does the math, realizing this is the exact same species that spear-wielding captain supposedly just wiped out. Kang totally rolls with it, claiming that thanks to that frontline fighter, he managed to score some premium cuts. Hyped out of his mind, the agent aggressively digs through his wallet, sweating bullets over whether he actually has enough cash for such a rare meal. The camera pushes in on our culinary master as he slices thick, juicy slabs of the alien protein. He hits it with an expert spice rub, fully in the zone. Suddenly, the screen fades to black, throwing us back 3 decades to where this madness all started. We see a younger Kang blinking his eyes open, forcefully isekai'd into an alien dimension. Tossed into a brutal wasteland packed with dragons and apex predators, he had to unleash pure savagery just to stay breathing. Cue the flashback. Our guy is staring down a colossal dragon, dodging a lethal blast by an absolute hair. But after grinding his stats higher than the beasts, he finally absolutely bodied the ultimate boss, the Demon King himself. Then, through some crazy cosmic glitch, he secured a one-way ticket back to Earth. Stepping foot in Seoul, though, total culture shock. The city was completely unrecognizable. Bro spent 3 straight decades in the trenches, so he's got every single monster's playbook memorized. Now, flipping meat on a grill, he questions if he even needs to hop back into that chaotic hunter lifestyle. Let's be real, humanity already built their own defense system to hold the line. This is his new reality, so he's locking in on his culinary arc. Plating up the masterpiece, he taps his spatula and declares it's ready to serve. Boom! A flawless, mouth-watering Velto steak hits the table. The agent swallows hard, totally mind-blown by a meal that looks straight out of a Michelin star kitchen. He pierces a juicy cut with his fork, bracing himself. One bite in, his pupils dilate. The flavor profile just short-circuited his brain. He loudly hypes up how the beef literally dissolves on his tongue, sending a wave of absolute zen through his muscles. But abruptly, he pushes out of his seat, snapping back to reality. Forget the price tag, homie decides he's earned the ultimate treat-yourself moment today. Polishing off the dish, he immediately demands round 2 of that Velto magic, leaving our chef quietly observing the hype. Wiping the second plate spotless, the agent exhales deeply and calls for the check. The chef casually drops the news. The first customer gets a pass, completely on the house. But the agent isn't having it. Fully energized and already plotting his next visit, he refuses to walk out without dropping cash. Catching that vibe, our main character just smirks, low-key respecting the hustle. He quotes the tab at 10 silvers. The agent slaps the coins down, throwing massive props to the chef for the legendary feed. The dude heads for the exit but freezes, spinning back around. He drops a heavy warning. The streets are absolutely brutal for regular folks right now. Sliding his business card across the counter, he emphasizes the outside danger. The bold print reads, Jaewoo Choi, Association Patrol Unit. Our protagonist zones out for a second, silently echoing that harsh truth. It really is a brutal era for the powerless. Tracking the agent's exit, he mentally gives the guy a nod. Decent dude. Hope he survives out there. Pivoting back to his kitchen station, he slices into his personal portion. One taste validates everything. The flavor is absolutely top tier. Fast forward to deep night. An owl shadows the window, piercing the dead quiet street. Our boy stretches his muscles, chalking it up to another chill, uneventful shift. Then, his brain pivots to that mysterious Velto egg, brainstorming the ultimate recipe for it. Out of nowhere, bam! The diner door gets violently kicked off its hinges. A dude rocking fiery red hair steps into the frame, smirking about finally tracking him down. Cheolho whips around, completely thrown off but radiating pure, lethal irritation. The gatecrasher boldly declares he's here to repossess his property. Flashback sequence. Rewinding a few hours to a chaotic, crowded city bazaar. Here's the lore drop. Beasts completely wiped out global farming. Pushed to the brink, humanity flipped the script, turning monsters into meals, and the trend blew up. That shift sparked a massive monster meat economy. Cut to a shady merchant pushing fresh eggs. Cheolho questions if they're legit. Velto drops, but the seller brushes it off, claiming they're all identical. Cue the MC, activating his overpowered skill, the detector eye, scanning the merchandise. This ability, looted straight from a dragon artifact, capable of exposing the true stats of anything. Instantly, holographic menus pop up, detailing the rank and breed of every single egg. The vision is so busted it basically acts as a built-in lie detector. That's exactly why he keeps it deactivated around normal humans, opting to just bulk buy the stash. But amidst the pile, a glowing, neon blue egg, returning 0 data, blank stats. Red flags are flying, but he casually tells the merchant to box up the glitchy egg anyway. Jumping back to the present kitchen, he cracks a normal shell, flashing back to his gritty past where he viewed stopping to eat as a massive time loss. Back in the apocalyptic days, decent grub was an impossible dream, so now, he respects every single bite. Channeling that vibe, he whips up the daily special, a loaded Velto scramble. The sizzle triggers a memory of splitting this exact meal with his squad, out on the blood-soaked front lines. Tasting a spoonful, he realizes the milk actually skyrocketed the creamy texture of the Velto drop. Standing solo in his joint, he acknowledges the culinary W, but the nostalgia hits him like a truck. Ghostly faces of his fallen brothers flicker in his mind, making him feel ancient. But he snaps out of the emotional trip, his brain locking back onto the fact that his detector eye totally bugged out on that one specific egg. His lore knowledge kicks in. Dragon tier artifacts are literally forged the second a mythical lizard spawns. That makes them god tier against regular mobs, but entirely useless against their own species. Hovering his hand over the shell, a wild theory hits him. Is he holding a literal dragon egg? Just as he starts wondering how a dragon would taste, the front door violently bursts inward, shattering his focus. The gatecrasher scopes the room, mocking the joint and asking if it's even a real diner. Then, he projects his voice, loudly demanding his stolen property back. Leveling a finger straight at our MC, the guy gloats about catching him red-handed with the loot. Suddenly, it clicks in Chiolho's head. His overpowered vision is throwing blank stats on this intruder. 2. Deadpan. He casually asks if the punk is a dragon, completely stunning the red-haired dude. As the trespasser literally erupts into a blazing inferno, our boy is genuinely shook that mythical scaled beasts actually spawned in this dimension. Wreathed in roaring fire, the intruder screams, frantically demanding to know how a mere human leaked his true identity. Flames rapidly scorch the roof, but Chiolho? He's just wildly annoyed about the massive property damage to his spot. Inside the diner, the guy flexes an artifact that literally X-rays everything well. Everything except actual dragons. Chiolho figures that makes his life way easier, completely scrambling the intruder's brain. He holds out the egg like a peace offering, but casually drops an ultimatum. Grab a mop and fix this wrecked joint first. That strikes a major nerve, but before the intruder can snap, his eyes lock onto a glowing blue blade. He demands to know if it is forged from a dragon scale. A split second later, the unmistakable scent, radiating from the cutting board, hits his nose. Pure dragon bone. His blood boils instantly, and he shrieks that this psycho-human turned his ancestors into literal cookware. Going absolutely ballistic, he charges up a massive energy sphere, hurling it right at the chef's face while screaming for his head. Chiolho? He just stares blankly, utterly unbothered by the chaos. The blast detonates, launching him backward through the air, but his only complaint is how this extra debris just tripled the kid's chore list. Dusting himself off, he stands tall, his aura exploding outwards like a shockwave, as he drops some cold hard facts about dragon biology. Out of thin air, he literally spawns a heavy-duty frying pan, gripping it like a lethal weapon. Smack! One flawless baseball swing instantly deletes the incoming energy blast. The intruder's jaw hits the floor, totally paralyzed by this insane flex of pure strength. Chiolho steps out of the smoke, his eyes glowing with menace, muttering how dragons only ever learn their lessons one specific way. Winding up the skillet for a brutal counterattack, he growls that it is the hard way. That exact phrase hits the kid like a truck, triggering a massive wave of intense déjà vu. Cue the flashback. A younger Chiolho cornering the boy's father, boldly demanding his most sacred artifacts. The massive beast took extreme offense, completely shook by the sheer disrespect. But the young prince was desperately pulling at his dad's scales, crying out that this absolute unit was the legendary Miro Lycos. Based on the absolute beatdown he witnessed 30 years ago, he knew his old man was about to get absolutely folded. Snapping right back to reality, our OP chef takes a beat and realizes he is literally fighting a teenager. He cools off, telling the red-haired kid he has no real beef with him, leaving the boy totally stunned. Slumping into a chair, Chiolho pats the seat across from him, demanding a little chat about the collateral damage. He lays down the law, scrub the whole place spotless, and then he can grab his egg and bounce forever. But he drops a chill warning he really hates dragons, and round 2 will not end pretty. Defeated, the scaly kid gets on his knees, wringing out a soggy rag like a medieval peasant. He dumps his tragic lore, explaining how he got sucked out of the Espon continent, straight through a freak dimensional rift. Chiolho nods, completely getting the struggle, prompting the kid to nervously ask if he is an Espon native too. The chef casually drops his dual identity. Miro Lycos, back in the fantasy realm. Kang Chiolho, on the streets of Earth. Hearing that legendary name, the kid shifts into hyperdrive, speed scrubbing the tiles, basically having a panic attack, realizing he just fought his dad's sleep paralysis demon. Once the diner floor is practically sparkling, Chiolho gives him the green light to pack up and hit the road. But the kid stands his ground, throwing a curveball. Why did he ghost them and keep the family heirlooms? Squinting, the chef finally clocks the kid's magical signature, piecing together that he is the spawn of Rex, the terrifying flame dragon. Chiolho waves the boy over, chuckling that he officially retired from dragon slaying 30 years back. The kid tilts his head, asking how old he actually is, and the chef casually drops that he is cruising past 50. He corrects himself instantly, admitting he is actually knocking on 60's door, absolutely melting the dragon's brain with his insane anti-aging. Chiolho smirks, teasing that his flawless skin must be confusing, getting a flustered reaction before flipping the switch to dead serious, reminding the kid that back in the day, the only vocabulary giant lizards understood was a heavy fist to the jaw. A deep chuckle escapes the chef, Finding it incredibly hilarious to see a legendary beast acting like a terrified puppy, he clears the air, dropping the truth bomb that he never actually murdered a dragon. Those morbid utensils were basically apology gifts, and those precious stolen relics? Totally shattered into a million pieces during his epic final boss fight with the Demon King. Realizing this lore drop is going to take all night, he slides a glass of booze across the table to chill the kid out. Instant mistake, the dragon erupts, aggressively screaming that a proud mythical beast would never lower himself to drink with a puny mortal. Yet, literally 5 seconds after throwing that tantrum, the lightweight completely blacks out, face-planting violently into the wood. Mumbling through his drool, he slurs that Cholho should feel incredibly blessed to share a shot glass with him. Changing the subject, our guy asks if the egg is his kid, but the drunk lizard screeches that it is actually his baby sister. He spills the tragic backstory. A massive void ripped open right inside their nest while mom and dad were out hunting. Curious, Cholho asks how long he has been stranded on Earth, and the kid mumbles it has been a solid 6 months. The chef does the math, realizing that perfectly aligns with his own dramatic homecoming, leaving the scaly teen completely lost. Cholho clarifies that he had to tie up some massive loose ends back in the fantasy realm, before hopping dimensions. The kid squints, totally baffled as to why an overpowered god-tier warrior is playing line cook in a dive bar. He pushes the issue, hyping up how an absolute unit like him could easily conquer this pathetic modern world in a week. Smashing his fist onto the table, the dragon aggressively vents about how humans are inherently toxic and obsessed with chasing clout and power. Cholho shrugs, admitting the kid is not entirely wrong, but making it crystal clear that world domination is just exhausting white noise to him now. He drops some mentor wisdom, telling the kid to stay far away from shady humans and protect his bloodline. Flashing a totally goofy grin, the hammered dragon aggressively hugs the giant egg, hyping up how undeniably cute his unhatched sister is. But gravity suddenly kicks in, and Cholho nearly jumps out of his skin watching the kid almost topple out of his chair. He pinches the bridge of his nose, exhaling a massive, soul-crushing sigh over this chaotic babysitting gig. Flash forward to the next morning, and Cholho suddenly jolts awake. Opening his eyes, he instantly locks vision with a painfully adorable, miniature dragon staring straight into his soul. The tiny reptile completely emerges from her shell, sending her older brother into an absolute fanboy meltdown over his newly hatched sibling. He is literally jumping for joy, celebrating the miracle that just went down right on top of a greasy diner table. Cholho casually leans in, asking what kind of name you even give a magical baby lizard, and the brother admits he is still brainstorming something epic. Our guy scoops her up, instantly triggering her big bro who snaps, "Dude, she's not a pet." But the MC just ignores him, squishing those chubby little cheeks. He notices those tiny, razor-sharp fangs hiding in that adorable face. Meanwhile, the red-haired brother completely folds, flexing that she is literally the most precious being in existence. Giving her a soft pat on the head, our MC completely agrees. I mean, who could resist that level of cuteness? Getting back to business, he asks the kid what his game plan is for the little dragon. Silence hangs in the air for a hot second. The chef just waits out the awkward pause. Finally, cracking a faint smile, the boy admits their destination doesn't even matter, right as a weird rumbling kicks off outside. Panning out to the diner, our guy insists they fuel up before hitting the road. Suddenly, the vibe shifts entirely, fading into a brutally bleak, rain-soaked memory. The atmosphere gets suffocatingly heavy. Flashbacks hit him hard, memories of demonic hordes rolling in with the thunder, and that metallic stench of blood completely hijacking the breeze. A heartbreaking vision flashes before his eyes, clinking glasses for the absolute last time with someone irreplaceable. Her final whisper ghosts through his mind, begging him to finally live for himself. Snapping back to reality, he drops a sizzling hamburger steak on the table, making the tiny dragon completely lose her mind with hype. The red-haired boy low-key panics. He nervously asks if they are getting kicked out and frantically checks the damage for the meal. Our MC casually drops that it is 10 silver, but immediately waives the fee, telling them it is on the house. This instantly makes the proud dragon squirm with guilt. Jolting up, the kid shoots his shot, desperately asking if the diner doubles as an inn. When our guy shuts that down, the boy's entire demeanor crumbles. The chef quietly realizes that maybe dragons aren't as arrogant as the legends claim. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off in the kid's head, and he slams a massive, glowing monostone right on the counter. He flexes that it is a solid tier 4 crystal, totally confident that it holds serious weight in this human world. Seeing this absolute flex, our protagonist just totally loses it, slapping a hand over his face to hide his booming laughter. Right on cue, the little sister's stomach lets out a massive roar. Amused, he asks if the little gremlin is still starving. It hits him. Trying to raise a toddler on modern Earth is an absolute nightmare, even for mythical beasts. And just like that, a wave of nostalgia washes over him. Deep down, he secretly misses the chaos of his old fantasy life. He knows he will never see his lost love again, but that hollow ache in his chest refuses to fade. Flashing a warm smile, he tells the runaway duo they can crash here, pushing the insanely valuable stone back. But the stubborn teen refuses to take a handout, insisting there is absolutely no way he is freeloading. Seeing the kid's pride, the MC finally accepts the payment. Instantly, pitch-black smoke begins swirling from his fingertips. The air crackles, and a massive, swirling energy rift rips open, right in the middle of the dining room. The young dragon's jaw practically hits the floor. Stepping out of the void is Kasim, an ancient, immortal goblin who instantly bows, greeting our guy as the absolute king of the world. Deadpan, the MC explains this guy is just his personal subspace manager, telling the dramatic goblin to chill with the cringe titles. Then, he drops a question. Exactly how many mana crystals are currently chilling in his secret stash? Kasim dramatically declares their wealth rivals the grains of sand on a beach. Those supreme tier ones are a bit rare. Unbothered, the hero tosses over the kid's payment, casually telling the goblin to toss another pebble onto the mountain. But before dipping back into the portal, Kasim mentions he needs to withdraw an item. He carefully places a different stone into the chef's hand, leaving the red-haired teen absolutely mind-blown by this insane flex. The goblin bows out, almost slipping up and dropping that legendary king title again, but catches himself at the last second. Instead, he bids a highly respectful farewell to Mr. Kang, supposedly just your average, everyday dude. The rift snaps shut, and our guy turns to the stunned kid, dropping the bomb that he is putting him to work. Cut to a gorgeous, sun-drenched exterior shot of the diner, radiating purely immaculate, cozy vibes. Inside, the tiny white dragon is totally knocked out, drooling happily in absolute peace. Boom! A massive explosion violently shatters the silence. Out in the back alley, our hero is literally playing Firebender instructor, teaching the kid how to channel his chaotic dragon breath without accidentally nuking the entire block. He orders the boy to run it back, demanding laser focus on a single meat skewer clutched in his hand. Whoosh! The flames hit perfectly, searing the meat into a flawless, mouth-watering masterpiece. Mind completely blown, the young dragon gets super curious about this random metal stick pulled from the void. The camera pans in, revealing that this skewer is actually the magnum opus forged by a legendary dwarven master smith. The teen is practically hyperventilating, completely baffled as to why an epic mythical artifact is flipping burgers. But our MC isn't having it. He bluntly states that using it beats letting it rot in a vault somewhere. Surprisingly, the dragon kid realizes he has a solid point. Ding! The front doorbell chimes, signaling the arrival of Jae-woo Choi. Flashing a charismatic grin, he claims he is just popping in during his daily route. Meanwhile, in the background, our fiery dragon prince is spotted, scrubbing a mountain of soapy dishes like a stressed-out intern. Jae-woo Choi aggressively digs into his meal, hyping up the chef's consistently god-tier cooking. Spotting the new kid drowning in suds, the agent chuckles, assuming the boss finally caved and hired a busboy. Taking a breath, Jae-woo Choi casually drops that a brand new dungeon just ripped open downtown, and the guilds are desperately scouting for hunters. The protagonist's eyes darken, going completely silent, as his brain rapid fires through the implications of this threat. From his past life, he knows exactly what these zones are. Literal breeding nests, designed to spawn horrific nightmares, and he is dead set that they operate as portals, seeing as that is exactly how he and the dragon kids ended up here. Oblivious to this, the agent breaks down the intel, revealing the zone is clocked at a terrifying Tier 5 rating, basically a death trap. Because the stakes are so ridiculously high, the association is deploying elite hunter, Sang-ho Kim alongside the heavyweight Zenkak squad, while the legendary Ice Witch, Miss Cheon, is locked in to defend the perimeter. With a heavy sigh, he vents about how the plaza is completely swamped with desperate hunters begging to join the raid. The sheer reality of it breaks the agent's heart, knowing these guys are just risking their lives to feed their families, making the hustle out there absolutely cutthroat. Wrapping up the heavy lore drop, he tosses down a tip, shouts out a massive thanks for the grub, and heads back onto the streets. The dragon puffs out its chest, radiating pure ego, while our MC secures the bag, knowing the customer absolutely devoured the meal. Cash secured, his brain immediately goes to restocking that premium Ataho beef. Cut to the bustling marketplace, where he flags down the local butcher, asking for 10 kilos of that prime sirloin. Out of nowhere, a booming voice cuts through the noise, barking at randos to squat up for a raid, demanding a single file line. He scans the chaotic mob, and his eyes lock onto this dude wielding a spear. Wait, why does he look so familiar? It clicks, that is Sang-ho Kim, the infamous spear mage. Glancing around at all these looking for group posters, nostalgia hits him like a truck. Ever since reality literally glitched into a massive multiplayer RPG, gamer lingo became the new normal, And just like your typical lobbies, healers and meat shields are VIPs, while everyone else is just a dime a dozen DPS trying to flex. One Sweat is practically begging to join, but the raid leader straight up rejects him, healers only. This triggers a flashback of the guild agent, dropping the heavy reality that every single hunter out here has mouths to feed. Chiolho's vibe shifts instantly, his jaw clenching as he makes a silent vow. He knows Jaewoo means well, but the dude seriously needs to put himself first for once. Smash cut to a random guy rocking a heavy backpack, desperately fishing around in his pockets. He pulls out a busted wallet, flips it open, and Absolute Zero Bro is utterly broke. Letting out a soul-crushing sigh, he drags his feet forward, the light literally fading from his eyes, until he abruptly halts, white-knuckling his backpack straps. Panning back to the diner, Chiolho shouts for Khan, admiring his insanely pristine kitchen setup. The entrance chime shatters the silence. He pivots, and guess who just walked in? It is that exact same exhausted dude from the streets, asking if the kitchen is still serving with a voice that sounds like pure gravel. Our MC slides over a glass of ice water, earning a hollow, breathless thank you. The guy asks if they whip up instant noodles. Chiolho nods, telling him to sit tight. Snagging a fresh pack from the shelf, he smirks, realizing that even 3 decades post-apocalypse, cheap noodles still hit different. The customer nervously asks about the price tag. 2 silver coins, the boss replies calmly. The dude's face lights up like a Christmas tree, the shock hitting him before he slams an order for 5 whole bowls. Chiolho raises an eyebrow, betting there is no way he finishes that, but the guy swears on his life he can down it all. Red flags go off in the chef's head, so he pops his visual ability, Detector Eye. The stats pop up, revealing this random dude is rocking the Food God class, the exact same build a former buddy of his used to run. Here is the catch. This class scales infinitely based on the tier and sheer volume of grub you consume. Basically, you farm insane stats by feasting on high-level monster meat, stacking massive buffs. But if you cannot afford premium loot, you are stuck at level 1, cursed with a bottomless, agonizing void in your gut. Right on cue, the guy's stomach growls like a beast, proving he is hard stuck in the beginner phase. Chiolho does the math. This poor guy never got the funding to break his level cap and actually become OP. So, he flexes. He drops a mountain of noodles in front of him, absolutely loaded with thick slices of premium Idaho beef. The customer is completely stun-locked, as the boss casually mentions the upgrade is totally free. Internally, Chiolho sighs, knowing that in this broken timeline, the nice guys are always the ones getting stomped on. He gives him a nod, hinting that the elite protein will supercharge his stats, again stressing that it will not cost him a dime. Tears actually well up in the man's eyes as he stammers out a thank you, diving in for a massive bite of the steak. The second it hits his tongue, an absolute flavor bomb detonates in his mouth, sending him straight to a culinary nirvana. He practically screams, mind blown by the god-tier taste, while Chiolho just chuckles at the over-the-top reaction. Going full goblin mode, the guy obliterates the bowl, slurping down noodles like he has not eaten in a decade. Leaving 0 crumbs, he tilts the massive bowl back, chugging the savory broth until the ceramic is bone dry. Slamming the empty dish down, he exhales heavily, radiating pure gratitude for the legendary feast. He hypes up the chef, praising every bite, and Chiolho just smiles, happy to feed a real one. But when the check drops, his hands shake, fumbling his trashed wallet and scattering loose change all over the tiles. Scrambling to pick up his mess, a neatly folded necktie accidentally slips out. Quickly stuffing it back, he hands over the wrinkled bills, dropping another heavy thank you, which the boss pockets without batting an eye. Throwing a final wave, the dude promises to become a regular before dipping out into the streets. Chiolho puts 2 and 2 together. The guy's gear was completely filthy, yet that tie was fresh out of the box. He figures the dude is just hustling to survive this dystopian nightmare, and brushes it off. Fast forward a bit, and fate decides to be funny, crossing their paths outside once again. Out of nowhere, the guy freezes. A horrific sound rips through the air, and his expression turns deadly serious. Looking up, he witnesses a total nightmare. A dimensional rift is completely melting down right in the downtown sector. High above the skyline, a pitch-black vortex tears reality apart, vomiting toxic, dark mana over the entire block. First responders immediately swarm the zone, throwing up barricades and screaming at the civilians to run for their lives. Stepping up to the police tape, a rogue hunter offers to carry the front line. The soldier barks back, demanding to know his combat rank. Without hesitating, he claims the Food God title. The guard instantly waves him off, basically telling him he would just be cannon fodder here. Suddenly, cutting through the panic, a young girl rushes in, blasting a wounded survivor with high-tier healing spells. The struggling hunter locks eyes with her, his heart dropping into his stomach. It is Mijin, his actual flesh and blood. Going feral with panic, he violently shatters through the police barricade, sprinting into the danger zone while screaming his daughter's name. "What are you even doing here?" Mijin snaps, crossing her arms as her dad stammers out that the academy deployed backup hunters, and he just wanted to check on her. She immediately tells him to bounce, but he stubbornly digs his heels in, swearing he was just stressing over her safety. That completely sets her off, and she absolutely loses it, screaming that all he ever does is grind at his job and stuff his face, totally ghosting their family when it actually matters. She physically shoves him back and orders him to evacuate the zone, making his phone violently smack against the pavement. Whirling around, Mijin suddenly spots something totally random, lying on the crushed asphalt, and asks if it's literally a necktie. Her brow furrows, throwing her dad a hyper-confused glare, roasting him for the fact that he doesn't even own a single tailored suit. Right at that exact second, a blinding, cinematic portal rips through the air, and a massive armored boot slams onto the concrete. Stepping straight out of the glow is Sung-hoon and his absolute god-tier squad, dropping in like main characters to neutralize the threat. One of the heavy hitters flexes that the dungeon is officially cleared, hyping up the squad for their insane synergy. The commander immediately barks at the medics to rally and patch up the casualties, and Mijin instantly darts off into the chaos to do her job. Her dad is completely left in the dust, just standing there frozen like an NPC. While the strike team hypes up their massive W, we get a quick lore drop about the Hunter class system and the wild abilities these Awakeners actually flex. There are exactly 5 mastery tiers to grind through, and rookie hunters sweat it out at the Cypher Academy to level up their specs. If someone actually manages to max out their base class, sweating, blood, and tears can technically unlock a secondary class. Anyone pulling off that insane flex is instantly treated like absolute royalty by the Hunter Association. But if you RNG a trash tier class at Awakening, leveling up is a straight-up myth. At that point, you're better off hanging up the sword and just finding a regular 9-to-5 to survive. The camera cuts back to our boy Cheolho, who is totally spacing out, flashing back to that insane moment he awakened his busted 6th class during the final boss raid. He lets out an annoyed groan in his kitchen, salty over the fact that he peaked and never managed to crack a 7th class awakening. Suddenly, his fiery-haired coworker busts through the door, yelling out, "Hero!" before frantically correcting herself and shouting Cheolho's actual name. She is practically vibrating with hype, screaming that something impossible just went down. The baby dragon, Gyul, literally shed his scales and started talking. She scoops up the tiny beast and tries to coach it into pronouncing the name Khan. But the little dude deadass locks eyes with Cheolho and squeaks out the word, "Daddy." Cheolho is cringing so hard his soul is leaving his body, while the redhead is absolutely losing her mind, laughing at the absurdity of it all. Desperate to deflect the cringe, he complains that naming a literal dragon Gyul sounds way too basic Korean, but she instantly claps back, reminding him the mob literally spawned in their server. She finally coaxes the little creature into squeaking the name Khan, throwing a mini celebration like they just beat a raid boss. Shifting to business, Cheolho interrogates the little guy about what base class he spawned with, since dragons are literally born with built-in specs, but Khan is completely clueless. Ding! The shop bell chimes, and the redhead instantly dives behind the counter like she caught a jump scare. The exhausted dad from the disaster zone shuffles in, slumping into a chair and ordering 5 massive bowls of instant ramen. Khan is completely baffled by the massive order. As the totally shattered dude sits there, he just starts trauma dumping on Cheolho, explaining how he rushed to the raid zone only to find his daughter. His voice cracks as he confesses how useless he felt, cursed with garbage tier 7 stats that got him treated like a literal civilian by the pros. Meanwhile, he brags that his daughter is a tier 3 healer, an absolute prodigy, who gets glazed non-stop by the elite association. As for that random tie, he admits he wanted to pull up to her academy event looking fresh, but checking his bank account hit him with a harsh reality check. Everything was insanely overpriced. The absolute max his wallet could handle was that pathetic, cheap strip of fabric, a fact that completely destroyed his pride. Staring at the table, he spirals, debating if he should even show his face at her school, since he can't even bankroll her tuition fees. Clutching his stomach, he lets out this hollow, self-deprecating laugh at the dark irony of his body demanding food during a mental breakdown. Cheolho just quietly listens, soaking in the heavy vibes, as the broken man mutters that if he skips a meal, he won't have the stamina to grind at his low-level reconstruction job tomorrow. Sliding smoothly into the kitchen, Cheolho creeps up on Khan, who is currently prepping the noodles. With a deadpan face, Cheolho whispers, asking if he can slice him into thin, prime cuts, sending the redhead into an absolute panic spiral. Khan shrieks at the top of his lungs, accusing Cheolho of gaslighting and fattening him up this whole time, just to harvest his meat. Smirking, the overpowered chef tells him to chill out, revealing it was a troll move, and lazily pointing at the glowing dragon scales Gyul just dropped. Khan is absolutely livid at the disrespect, screaming that those scales were supposed to be a limited edition collectible. Smash cut to an absolutely colossal bowl of ramen, stacked high with thick, premium cuts of mystery meat. Chiolho slides the legendary dish to the depressed hunter, dropping a casual on the house, while Khan continues his mental breakdown off-camera. Still trapped in his depressive slump, the dad sluggishly bites into the meat, but his pupils instantly dilate in absolute shock. The flavor hits him like a critical strike. Tears start silently cascading down his face as he aggressively slurps the noodles, eating his way through all that bottled-up trauma. Fast forward, and the bowl is absolutely licked clean. The hunter drops a crumpled banknote on the wood, hitting Chiolho with a deep, genuine thank you not just for the god-tier meal, but for actually sitting through his ultra-depressing lore drop. Chiolho just leans back and watches the guy walk away, flashing a subtle, cocky smirk. Quest completed. Pausing at the exit, the tired hunter stares out into the street, muttering about how absolutely brutal the daily grind is. But Chiolho drops some massive wisdom, telling him that if you keep sweating and grinding, the server sometimes actually drops top-tier loot. He orders the guy to stay alive, promising that this kitchen will always be ready to buff his stats again. Flashing his first real smile of the day, the dad steps out into the night, swearing on his life he'll be a regular. Poking his head out, Khan is totally confused, asking why the guy didn't instantly level up or glow. Chiolho just shrugs, saying a fire meal was the best buff he could offer. Narrowing his eyes, Khan demands the real tea, asking why this overpowered chef went so hard for a random NPC. Chiolho goes completely mute, his gaze dropping away as a dark, ultra-heavy shadow crosses his face. He softly strokes Gyul's head, dropping the ultimate lore. His own old man used to carry that exact same broken, hollow look in his eyes. Khan goes dead silent, completely shook. It hits us that even a guy like Chiolho had a dad back in the day. The camera pans away, dropping us into the dead of night as our hunter crashes at his run-down apartment. Stepping inside, he catches his daughter, Mijin, totally knocked out with her phone tossed on the mattress. But then, he spots it. She actually picked up the necktie he had dropped earlier. Half asleep, she mumbles a quiet apology. The poor girl is still beating herself up over the harsh stuff she said. Gently ruffling her hair, he whispers that it is all good, admitting he messed up too. He drops to his knees right there by the bed, completely crushed by the fact he cannot give her the life she deserves. Tucking her in, he makes a silent, ironclad vow. No matter how broke they are, he will never stop fighting for her. Cut to the very next morning. Our guy is full-on sprinting through the city streets, screaming that he needs to lock down that final roster spot. Panting heavily, he skids to a halt right in front of the recruiter, who immediately demands his hunter ID. The guy takes one look, squints, and asks for a name. He catches his breath and replies, Manho Kim. The recruiter's eyes light up. He remembers Manho as the poor dude who got completely abandoned in the monster zone during their last run. The guard warns him not to fumble the bag this time, noting that this raid is a breeze with the boss already gone. With the scavenger squad all grouped up, the captain gives the green light. They step right through the shimmering gate. Miles away, Chiolho lets out a massive yawn, stepping out his front door, just kicking off a totally regular morning. He is strolling down the block when a speeding van absolutely blows past him. The Zenkao Guild transport vanishes over the horizon, hitting the cook with a massive wave of bad vibes. He freezes in his tracks, his gut screaming that something is incredibly wrong. Back at the raid zone, blaring sirens absolutely shatter the peace as the portal's energy goes completely rogue. Sangho bolts out of HQ just as the intercom blasts that the gate is on total lockdown. The terrifying reality drops. A low-level scavenger squad is trapped inside. Outside, Mijin is screaming in panic for her dad. The absolute worst-case scenario unfolds. A hidden boss just spawned, permanently sealing the exit. Meanwhile, the cleanup crew steps onto alien turf, staring at a brutally untamed landscape. The squad captain is screaming at everyone to hold the line, but Manho is completely zoned out, captivated by the wild scenery. Out of nowhere, a freaky-looking dinosaur lunges straight for his throat. Acting purely on instinct, Manho throws up his arm to tank the hit. He eats the attack head-on, literally tosses the beast aside, and stands there baffled. He feels ridiculously strong, and for some reason, he is not starving today. One of the guys spots his crazy strength, but their jaw drops for a totally different reason. High up in the sky, the literal fabric of space starts tearing apart. The dungeon's reality fractures like glass. The ground violently quakes, and the whole squad stares up in absolute horror. A colossal, razor-sharp claw plummets from the sky, smashing into the dirt with a bone-rattling boom. The beast steps out of the shadows, a gargantuan T-Rex that unleashes an ear-splitting roar, claiming its title as the hidden boss. Manho is practically having a panic attack, cursing their garbage luck. For context, a hidden boss is a secondary nightmare that spawns from a bonus dimensional rift, and when that happens, low-level cleanup crews basically turn into monster food. The squad is frozen in sheer terror, as Manhwa clocks the beast as a lethal Tigrex. Without warning, the Titan locks eyes with them and charges. Manhwa screams at the crew to scatter, but then he freezes, sweat pouring down his face, as a crazy, high-stakes idea crosses his mind. Sitting right there on the dead dino is a glowing mana stone. That tiny crystal is a literal jackpot that could wipe out all his debt. It is his golden ticket to finally upgrading Mijin's life. Tuning out the terrified screams of his team, he bolts straight toward the loot, blind to the deadly risk. His heart is pounding out of his chest as he extends his hand, obsessed with snatching that payday. But the giant T-Rex explodes from the shadows, snapping its massive jaws to swallow him whole. With a brutal backhand, the Titan swats him through the air like an absolute ragdoll. Smashing into the dirt, Mijin's harsh words echo in his skull. He wonders if this is how she views him, just a pathetic, desperate loser. A useless dad who cannot even shield the person he loves most. A montage of his kid flashes before his eyes, from her elementary graduation straight to last night. He sees her bright childhood smile, the crushing tears at her mom's funeral, and the warm memory of holding her as a tiny baby. All he can do is whisper he is sorry, but in a split second, a blazing spark of pure resolve ignites in his eyes, flipping the switch. Forcing himself up from the wreckage, he screams internally that he refuses to die and leave her orphaned. Surging with a completely unhinged adrenaline rush, he stares down the stumbling Titan and roars that he is not checking out today. The beast digs its massive claws into the earth, loading up for the kill shot. The monster unleashes a deafening roar and bulldozes toward Manhwa, who is absolutely refusing to bow out. He balls his fist up tight, scraping together every last drop of courage in his veins. Screaming with pure, unfiltered rage, he swears on his life he is not going out like a scrub. Riding purely on survival instinct, he throws a desperate punch that literally stops the monster's giant paw dead in its tracks, unlocking a crazy dormant power. Intense, crackling red lightning explodes from his knuckles, wrapping his entire body in a massive aura. Watching from afar, the squad captain loses his mind, yelling that it has to be a literal rank-up awakening. Manhwa is totally stunned. He cannot wrap his head around the fact he just tanked a hidden boss completely solo. Then it hits him, his hands do not even sting. Even crazier, that brutal, gnawing starvation is completely gone. For the first time in his entire life, the curse of constant hunger has simply vanished. Boom! He blitzes straight into the danger zone and literally clamps his hands around the jaws of the beast, totally dead-stopping its massive strike. Flexing this insane new power level, he goes toe-to-toe with the colossal dino. Manhwa grinds his heels into the dirt, flashing a reckless grin as he dares the boss to eat his next attack. He screams at the monstrous lizard to brace itself, because round 2 is just kicking off. Meanwhile, over in another zone, the elite squad watches their top-tier gear completely shatter into dust, a brutal reality check on the insane power scaling of the boss. Right on cue, Sangho drops into the war zone, immediately verifying if the civilian evacuation is completely wrapped up. He demands the coordinates of the main threat, but a traumatized hunter just points a shaking finger. The dude is absolutely flabbergasted that some random guy is solo tanking a tier 2 Tigrex. A smirk creeps onto the face of Sangho as he processes the absolute hype of the situation. He mutters that this old dude is an absolute legend, genuinely blown away by the flex. Watching Manhwa literally bully a boss monster, the captain instantly spots his raw talent and decides he absolutely has to slide into his DMs for a recruitment pitch later. Suddenly, a glowing system prompt pops up, dropping the ultimate plot twist. His official class is God of Food, a wildly broken build that literally bounces damage straight back at the attacker. It basically turns him into an unkillable meat shield on the front line. Watching from the shadows, Chelho calculates that under the Korean ranking system, this guy easily hits the tier 3 benchmark. Realizing the dynamic duo has the situation completely on lock, our boy figures his shift is officially over and dips. We smash cut to Tiny Gyul, letting out a massive yawn, totally setting the vibe that life back at the diner is chill and drama-free. Resting on the counter is the daily paper, practically screaming the headline that the secret boss, that massive Tigrex, just got completely wiped off the map. The article hypes up Manhwa Kim as the absolute MVP of the raid, securing the ultimate carry, and immediately ranking up to tier 3. Even the Hunter Association has to swallow their pride, publicly apologizing and promising a full rank reassessment. Back to the wholesome content. Chelho scoops up Gyul, teasing her about gaining some extra baby weight. Without missing a beat, the adorable kiddo looks up and calls him Papa. He immediately hits the panic button, awkwardly explaining they share 0 DNA, but she just squeezes him into a giant bear hug anyway. Defeated by the absolute cuteness, a warm smile breaks through his tough exterior. He completely caves and just soaks in the sweet father-daughter vibes. While the background radio drones on with the local broadcast, the anchor starts yapping about a bizarre crime spree hitting the streets. Apparently, This mystery bandit is absolutely obsessed with hoarding snacks and sparkly junk, and even finessed some high-value monastones right out of the bazaar. Cheolho zones out, heavily analyzing the clues, totally blind to the fact that Tiny Jewel is splashing around nearby. Flashing maximum puppy dog eyes, she waddles over and hands her brand new dad a cup brimming with mystery water. Out of nowhere, Khan absolutely kicks down the kitchen door, screaming at the top of his lungs for Cheolho to drop the cup. Gagging at the sight, he frantically warns that the so-called beverage is literally a biohazard cocktail of lethal germs. He frantically clarifies that the kiddo just read a fairy tale about fetching fresh water from a magical well. A primal fear instantly freezes Cheolho to the core as it dawns on him that this sweet, innocent child thinks the porcelain throne is a local water source. Hard cut to Agent Jaewoo Choi absolutely devouring a plate of kimchi, hyping the side dish as a literal culinary masterpiece. Cheolho casually flexes that he only works with top-tier, luxury ingredients, giving his recipe that busted, unfair flavor profile. The entrance chime instantly kills the vibe, and Jaewoo perks up, hyping up some incoming VIP guests. He smoothly mentions he dragged a heavy hitter along for the meal, as a massive shadow looms into the frame. Rocking a slick leather jacket, it is none other than Captain Song-ho Kim, the legendary spear-wielding powerhouse. Cheolho hits him with a respectful bow, dropping the usual courtesy about knowing his insane reputation. The smartly dressed agent steps up to break the ice, instantly clocking Cheolho as a lethal spear mage. Meanwhile, Song-ho just groans, venting about how his entire shift was basically an endless loop of brain-rotting corporate meetings. Pivoting the energy, Jaewoo dramatically points to the corner booth, dropping the bomb that the mythical god of food is just chilling right there. He absolutely fanboys, hyping up Manhwa Kim, the absolute Chad who solo saved their disaster of a dungeon raid. Manhwa just flashes a humble smile, giving 100% of the credit to the chef, claiming the guy pulled him out of absolute rock bottom. Cheolho waves off the praise, keeping it cool, and saying he just wanted a repeat customer for his diner. The legendary tank places an order for his standard bowl of noodles, and the chef immediately fires up the stoves. Catching a whiff of the hype, Song-ho suddenly feels his stomach rumble and demands the exact same menu item, giving the owner a massive boost of serotonin. The second the bowls touch the table, Manhwa literally unhinges his jaw, chugging the boiling broth until the ceramic is completely spotless. Song-ho just sits there glitching out, completely mind-blown by the absolute black hole of a stomach this dude possesses. He finally snaps out of it, nudging Manhwa to hurry up before he totally ghosts his daughter's school event. Cheolho chimes in with a reminder to take it easy, prompting the suited agent to toss up a peace sign and exit the building. As he walks away, he scopes out the dynamic between the group, silently plotting how this duo is practically a match made in heaven. But out of nowhere, the ambient noise drops to absolute zero. Feeling the sketchy vibes, he peers back at the dining area, only to catch Song-ho heavily nodding off, literally fighting for his life against the food coma. Boom. The heavyweight captain flatlines on the table, totally dead to the world after one single meal. The cinematic transitions into a dark, gritty flashback, slamming us into a scene where Song-ho is violently jacking a dude up by the collar, screaming in pure, unadulterated rage. He is brutally interrogating the guy, demanding to know what kind of idiot intentionally provokes a mythical tier beast. While this goes down, absolute hellfire reigns on the city skyline as a colossal, flaming nightmare wolf descends, locking eyes with the raid party and flexing its molten fangs with pure killing intent. Ripping through the atmosphere with a shockwave roar, the alpha predator detonates its magic, charging an attack meant to wipe the entire grid out of existence. Smash cut back to reality, where Song-ho jolts awake, severely disoriented from his chaotic trip to dreamland. He practically launchpads out of his chair, locking eyes with Cheolho, who is just casually scanning the daily headlines. Checking the clock, the chef drops a quick apology for letting him crash, assuring the sleepy captain that it is honestly no big deal. Still shaken, the elite hunter waves off his leftover dinner, claiming his stomach is completely in knots, right as the local broadcast loops back to that bizarre string of citywide heists. Pivoting instantly, he demands something strong to drink, sending the owner rushing behind the counter to pour up a quick fix. Sang-ho orders some soju and totally leaves the appetizers up to the chef's imagination. Rocking today's fresh haul, Cheolho pitches sashimi. The captain is absolutely floored. Raw fish? Really? The chef nods, flexing about a crazy fresh catch he snagged that morning. See? Lore drop. Once the monsters spawned, they basically hijacked the entire ocean. Normal fish? Practically extinct now. Trying to find them is like hunting for literal treasure. Now, anglers are out here reeling in mutant breeds, like this juvenile demon fish. Cheolho starts carving up the beast, claiming it tastes like a bizarre mashup of sea bass and flounder. Mid-slice, he admits he used to hate sashimi, but eventually realized it's top-tier dining. He slides the plate over, hyping up the seaweed noodles tucked underneath. Our captain is visually stunned but definitely skeptical about mixing raw monster fish with kelp pasta. The chef just smirks. He used a secret stash of ingredients and guarantees it is gonna slap. Snagging a piece with his chopsticks, Sang-ho takes a bite, and the crunch is unreal. Instantly, an absolute shockwave of flavor electrocutes his taste buds. It is like his health bar just fully restored. He slams back a shot of soju to wipe the slate clean for round 2. Letting out a massive sigh of pure bliss, he admits that completely hit different. The tension finally melts off Sang-ho's shoulders, as his nightmare work week is officially dead. He casually drops that he scored 2 days off, his first actual vacation in nearly 2 solid years on the grind. Grinding monster hunts daily had absolutely fried his mental state, leaving him hanging by a thread. Freaks of nature just kept spilling out of the portals non-stop, offering 0 seconds to just breathe. Glancing down at his spear, he notes the crazy expensive adamantium forged into it, a ridiculously rare metal. Back in his rookie days, he swore that blade was going to make him the main character who saves the universe. Reality check, though? The world outside taught him way too fast that there is always a bigger boss waiting. Stretching out his sore muscles, Sang-ho groans about being perpetually exhausted, prompting Cheol-ho to hit him with a, "Been there, bro." The chef gets deep, saying everyone eventually hits that brutal wall where you realize you are just an NPC. His pro tip for survival? Fake a smile and chug some premium soju. Trying to gas his buddy up, Cheol-ho reminds him he is literally one of Korea's 5 guardians. But Sang-ho gets super vulnerable, carrying the survival of thousands on his back is just crushing him. Noticing the heavy downpour outside, the chef gently asks if something specific triggered this total vibe shift. The captain nods. Yeah, something definitely went down, and the memory is burned into his brain. Cheol-ho casually drops a question. Has he ever heard of a legendary 9-tailed fox, a gumiho? Boom. We are dragged into a gritty flashback, where hunters sprint through a monsoon, absolutely raging at whoever aggroed the beast. A squad mate shouts over the storm that some hunter named Gentleman pulled the trigger on this mess, leaving Sang-ho totally baffled. While they scramble for combat, the gumiho screeches at the heavens, radiating pure, unadulterated wrath. Whipping back to the restaurant, the chef explains these mythical beasts totally break the power ranking system. They are complete hermits, and for 3 decades, they haven't initiated a single fight with humanity. Finding one is nearly impossible, but some idiot actually decided to poke the bear. Cut back to the storm. Sang-ho finally tracks down this so-called gentleman getting soaked in the downpour. 0 hesitation, he yanks the dude by the collar, screaming to know what he did to spark this apocalypse. But Fedora Guy just hits him with a dead-eyed stare, 0% fazed by the incoming doom. The captain's brain short-circuits at the culprit's actual identity right as his partner shrieks his name. Suddenly, the gumiho unleashes a roar of absolute carnage, painting the pitch-black sky with radioactive crimson flames. The colossal fox vaults onto a skyscraper, and a panicked voice shrieks to lock into battle formations. Frontlining the assault, Sang-ho roars at his squad to dump everything they have onto the monster. All 9 tails start pooling insane amounts of energy, charging up an ultimate nuke. A colossal orb of pure magma materializes, vibrating with enough force to literally crack the asphalt. Out of nowhere, the beast launches the payload, carpet-bombing the entire skyline with hellfire. Its eyes flare up with this insane, hypnotic hex, instantly freezing anyone stupid enough to make eye contact. Dozens of hunters just straight up glitch out, dropping their gear and slumping into brain-dead comas. A rookie screams at everyone to avert their eyes, warning that the inferno is inbound. One fireball violently connects with a defender's barrier, shattering it like cheap glass under the kinetic shockwave. Sang-ho and his duo dive backward at the literal last microsecond, dodging the lethal splash damage. In a panic, the girl triggers a runic spell, projecting a neon blue dome of hard light defense. Chain reacting off her magic, a grid of spectral barricades pops up, tanking the fox's blazing artillery. Spotting a micro window, the captain grips his spear, which now ignites with a sick, violet energy aura. Using the floating shields for parkour, he blitzes the titan from a dozen different blind spots. Mid-air, the hunter goes into a total nosedive, lining up the ultimate kill shot. Screaming at the top of his lungs, he orders the abomination to stay down permanently. His spear tip aggressively slices the atmosphere, sinking deep into the gumiho's throat, triggering a deafening, agonizing shriek. But then a single, massive tear swells in the monster's eye. Sang-ho catches that heartbreaking look, but momentum takes over. He can't cancel the animation, driving the blade home. Snapping back to reality at the sushi bar, he casually drops that the bloodbath dragged on until sunrise. Chest heaving, the beast finally dropped dead, while the echoes of battle faded. But then, a tiny, heartbreaking whimper cut through the silence. In the mud, a tiny fox pup was shivering in the heavy downpour. The sickening realization hit him like a truck. They just wiped out a fiercely protective mother and orphaned her literal newborn. The brutal truth? The gentleman eagles had actually targeted the baby first. The mother was just throwing down to protect her kid. Sang-woo groans, trying to brush off the fatal error by claiming even top-tier hunters fumble sometimes. But honestly, guardians do not get a pass for that kind of slip-up. Dropping a massive bombshell, he admits they had to put the poor pup out of its misery too. Cheolho tries to lighten the heavy vibe, assuring him they had 0 options left, and officially wrapping up the Gumiho case. Rocking a strained smile, Sang-woo just nods along. Shaking off the gloom, Sang-woo pushes up from his seat, joking that he totally overshared because the atmosphere was just too chill. Not missing a beat, Cheolho hops up too, putting in an order for another round of that premium sashimi packed up for takeout this time. He promises to whip it up instantly. As a crazy, beautiful starry night blankets the skyline, we get yanked straight back into a flashback. Shadows swallow the alleyways as the hunter gentleman struts through. Sang-woo's trauma hits hard, replaying the exact moment he squared up against the guy. Dude was absolutely losing his mind, screaming at him for targeting a literal infant. He snaps that a weak apology wouldn't fix the blood on their hands, not when an entire squad's lives were placed on the chopping block. But after all that screaming, the captain just coldly turns his back. Looking utterly destroyed, Sang-woo drags his feet through the smoking rubble, the crushing guilt of that bloodbath resting squarely on his shoulders. Snapping back to reality, Cheolho zones out, flashing back to the mystic 9-tailed foxes he bumped into back on his home turf. Fun fact, those beasts literally never sparked beef with humans. Yet, he still slaughtered 2 of them anyway, a massive regret that haunts him to this day. Because raw trauma like that permanently scars your soul. Miles away, Sang-woo trudges through the battered streets, clutching his takeout box for a sad solo dinner. Ripping open the container, his only slice of peace from that cursed evening, those dark flashbacks hit him like a freight train. The horrific shrieks are practically on loop in his brain. Out of nowhere, tiny footsteps crunch nearby. Boom. His killer instinct spikes instantly. The nightmare is literally looping, phantom flames scorching his sanity. Then, stepping out of the pitch-black shadows, a tiny, trembling paw. Creeping toward the battle-hardened hunter was the orphaned Gumiho pup. Except now, bro is flexing 3 whole tails and radiating his own blazing aura. Massive plot twist drops right here. Sang-woo completely lied he couldn't bring himself to execute the baby during that stormy bloodbath. Cue the flashback. The helpless furball was curled up, bawling its eyes out under the torrential rain. Maybe the dead mother's haunting stare paralyzed him? Whatever it was, he just could not pull the trigger. Squatting down, he aggressively roasts himself for being a soft-hearted guardian, while tossing the pup some premium fish. The captain demands to know how many glowing crystals this little thief gobbled up to evolve 3 tails this fast. The cheeky furball totally tunes out the lecture, though. Going full goblin mode, it lunges for the entire snack bag. Acting purely on reflexes, Sang-woo snatches the little rascal right by its fluffy tail. Big mistake. The Gumiho instantly snaps, flashing some wickedly sharp fangs before literally blasting a barrage of fireballs straight at his face, proving this tiny beast already packs a serious punch. Barely sidestepping the scorchers, the hunter desperately tries to talk the wild animal down. Begging it to just chill for a second, he drops a harsh reality check. The big bosses are mobilizing, and keeping it hidden in the concrete jungle is no longer viable. Slamming his deadly spear into the pavement, Sang-woo orders the creature to vanish. Swallowing his grief, he chokes out a final goodbye as the little fox whines in protest. It stubbornly refuses to budge. Breaking his own heart, he aggressively screams at the kid to scram. Finally getting the memo, the pup bolts into the dark tree line. A tragic, bittersweet smile crosses Sang-woo's face. He traded his peace of mind to give the baby a fighting chance. He is left entirely alone under the moon. Gripping his weapon, he unleashes one final, gut-wrenching roar, telling the beast to run. We pan to the tiny fox, parkouring fiercely across the neon-lit rooftops, desperately hunting for a safe haven. But then, hard breaks. Its nose twitches, catching a crazy familiar aura lingering in the air. Peeking through a glass pane, it is absolutely stunned to see baby Kuehl frantically waving, basically hyping it up to come inside. Intrigued, it creeps closer to the tiny dragon, who hilariously starts calling it daddy again. The fox's mystical fur practically sparkles before it just collapses, instantly melting from the pure overload of cuteness. Reading her wholesome, zero-threat energy, the wild beast accepts she is a total ally. Cut to the 2 absolute menaces, treating a massive bookshelf like a trampoline, just vibing and causing chaos. The second Cheolho strolls into the bedroom. The overpowered chef instantly connects the dots. This is the hidden presence he felt earlier, skulking around his turf. He casually asks if the fluffy intruder wants a snack, and the creature aggressively nods, showing zero hesitation. Smirking, Cholho calls it out for smelling like premium fish, totally exposing its previous meal. Right on cue, a swirling portal drops Kasim, his loyal goblin butler, into the room, bowing low to ask for his next command. Cholho just points at the mystical furball and orders Kasim to pull a top-tier crystal from his private stash. The minion moves at lightning speed, carefully presenting the glowing rock to Master Kang Cholho. Tossing it over, Cholho casually mentions a Tier 1 gem should give it a solid buff. The greedy little beast intercepts it midair. With zero fear, it chomps down on the pure magical crystal, crunching it like absolute candy. Instantly, a blinding, cosmic shockwave wraps around its tiny body, soaking up every drop of that insane power. Standing by the glass, Cholho tosses the glowing beast a final salute, fully charged up and ready to ghost the city. The fox whips around, launches itself through the open window, and completely vanishes into the cool night air, streaking across the sky like a blazing, miniature comet. Hitting a high rooftop, the mystic creature pauses to stare back at the glowing skyline, locking onto the memory of the hunter who spared its life. Deep down, the beast completely understands that this hunter actually has a heart of gold. Tears blur its vision as the crushing reality hits. This is their absolute final goodbye. Miles away, Sangho kicks back in the tall grass, his mind racing about how that blazing Gumiho flame practically paints a massive target on its back. Eyes heavy with sorrow, he silently prays the creature stays far, far away from this danger zone. Perched on a moonlit rooftop, the Gumiho unleashes one last, haunting howl into the night before melting seamlessly into the shadows. We smash cut to the absolute powerhouse of the nation, the National Hunters Association, the big dogs pulling every single string behind the scenes. These guys handpicked 5 elite Tier 2 hunters to serve as the ultimate guardians. We're talking absolute legends here, including the Ice Witch, Song Ho Kim, the Gentleman, and the Lethal Blade Queen. But when things get insanely classified, the association unleashes their absolute heavy hitters, the Tier 1 hunters for top-secret black ops. Sitting comfortably at the absolute peak of this food chain is President Jin Suyu, flawlessly flexing his title as the strongest man alive. Lounging in his massive office, he groans about the brutal heatwave to Cheyenne, the blue-haired mage who just silently judges him from across the room. The infamous Ice Witch casually offers to literally freeze the room for him, but he waves her off, claiming that suffering through the summer heat is just part of the vibe. His lazy demeanor vanishes instantly as he drops a massive bombshell word on the street, is the Mandragoras are gone. Without missing a beat, Cheyenne confirms the terrifying intel. For context, a Mandragora isn't your average houseplant. It's a mutated botanical nightmare, leaking, weaponized, highly lethal toxins. As if that wasn't unhinged enough, just one shriek from these things can instantly flatline low-tier hunters and regular civilians in seconds. She drops the chilling stats. 13 of these lethal weeds practically vanished into thin air, acting like they literally just grew legs and dipped. The president bursts out laughing, joking that root veggies aren't exactly out here running marathons. Still, refusing to take chances, he dials up a hunter named Gabby to crack the case. Hearing that name makes Cheyenne completely freeze up. Jin Suyu smirks, confirming the crazy rumors the legendary Shadow Cat has officially returned to hunt down these missing monsters. Meanwhile, miles away from the chaos, little Kyul does a big morning stretch, waking up perfectly cozy next to Cholho. But she blinks, instantly noticing Khan is totally MIA. Her attention snaps back to her dad, whose face is twisted in a heavy nightmare. Reaching out with a tiny, gentle paw, she desperately tries to pull him out of his bad dream. She softly pats his cheek, letting out worried little squeaks to snap him awake. But before a totally emotional moment can hit, her tiny stomach unleashes an aggressive rumble. Priorities completely shifted. The girl is on a hardcore mission for snacks. She hops off the mattress, waddling into the kitchen, and totally struggling to scale a towering dining chair. After a bunch of hilariously clumsy leaps, the baby dragon finally secures the high ground, entering full predator mode to scavenge for breakfast. Yanking the fridge open, she locks eyes with a bizarre, wrinkly plant monster, a literal mandragora. Completely clueless, she tilts her head, wondering why there's a tiny old dude chilling on the shelf. Absolutely terrified, the monstrous plant unleashes a deafening, glass-shattering shriek that shakes the entire house. But honestly, Kyul's ravenous hunger completely overpowers the noise pollution. Without a single ounce of hesitation, the little menace takes a massive chomp out of the screaming monster. The flavor is absolutely chaotic, forcing her to violently spit the cursed salad out everywhere. Gagging dramatically, she chucks the ruined vegetable across the room. Right on cue, Cholho and Khan rush into the kitchen, and the chef shoots the toddler, the ultimate disappointed dad glare. Barely phased, the baby dragon literally passes out into a food coma right then and there. Cholho sighs, promising that a massive timeout is definitely waiting for her when she wakes up. Scooping the sleeping toddler into his arms, he shoots Khan a questioning look, demanding to know where he's been ghosting them. Khan casually drops that he was out investigating the dimensional rifts. The catch? He only found the exact same basic beasts they used to fight back in Eastpan. The word monsters triggers a sudden, dangerous spark in Cheolho's eyes. He throws a sarcastic jab at his buddy, instantly making Khan lose his cool and scream about how dragons are actually top-tier majestic deities. But the banter dies down when the horrifying reality sets in. If these gates are open, an actual dragon or something infinitely worse could totally rip through the rift tomorrow. Dead serious now, Cheolho orders his friend to ping him immediately if any crazy anomalies pop up on his radar. Khan raises an eyebrow, asking if the boss man can't just forcefully shut the rifts down himself. But Cheolho shakes his head, admitting he's completely clueless on that front. Khan presses further, demanding to know how he managed to cross back into this world. But Cheolho smoothly dodges the interrogation, saving the epic lore drop for later. Pivoting like a pro, he announces a totally mundane grocery run to prep for dinner. In his defense, this brutal summer heat demands a seriously elite, refreshing menu. The camera pans out, slashing to the absolute edge of Sinchon, where a massive, glowing magical dome completely locks down the city limits. Stepping onto the scene, the Ice Witch scans the perimeter, but there's literally zero trace of any monster activity. Squinting at a specific abandoned structure, she confirms this is the exact drop point from her intel. Out of nowhere, a blinding wave of neon green energy completely engulfs her blind spots. Caught in a brutal ambush, the sorceress frantically charges up a freezing counterattack to save her own life. But before she can even blink, her wrist is violently pinned. A terrifying, clawed hand totally shuts down her spellcasting, dragging cold, sharp fingertips right across her cheekbone. Slipping out of the shadows, a fierce woman materializes right behind her, radiating that exact same toxic green aura. Flashing a cocky smirk, she casually guesses she's finally met the legendary Ice Witch of Sinchon. The mysterious attacker drops her identity, Gabby Lee, the legendary Shadow Cat, and an absolute Tier 1 beast. Utterly panicked, Cheyenne scrambles to formally introduce herself in return, but Gabby just laughs it off, telling her to drop the formalities and stick to first names. The veteran hunter hypes up the mage's skills, casually dropping a question about how many years she's been in the game. Hearing that 10-year time frame totally floors Cheon, leaving her completely speechless. Her mind is absolutely blown that this legend slipped right through a heavily fortified magic wall, like an absolute ghost. Plus, staring at the veteran's flawless, youthful skin, it's totally insane to process that she's been slaying monsters for 30 entire decades. Breaking the tension, Gabby reaches out for a firm handshake, reintroducing her vibe, and admitting it's her first time stepping foot in this territory. Flipping the switch back to business mode, she demands a quick rundown of the chaos, prompting Cheon to spill all the tea about the hijacked Mandragoras. The Ice Sorceress clarifies that a solid Tier 4 support hunter actually constructed this city's lockdown grid. Connecting the dots, Gabby immediately concludes that whoever successfully bypassed this security has to be sitting comfortably at Tier 3 or higher. Kicking off the manhunt, she demands the name of the top-tier mercenary crew in the area. Chaeyun drops the name Temple Guild, and Gabby immediately decides that is their next food stop. Miles away, Sangho suddenly shudders, hit with that weird feeling you get when someone is plotting on your name. Smash cut back to the diner, where baby Kuel is totally passed out in Khan's arms, looking like an absolute angel. The redhead is down bad for the kid, straight up bragging that she inherited all her peak cuteness from him. He is so locked into babysitting mode that he completely misses Cheolho lurking in the background, witnessing the whole soft boy moment. Snapping back to reality, the redhead jumps, stuttering as he asks how much the chef actually saw. Cheolho smirks and hits him with the classic, "I saw enough." Khan's face turns beet red as he tries to act tough, but the chef just waves it off, telling him there is zero shame in being a softie. Pivoting to chef mode, Cheolho grabs a massive watermelon and tosses Khan a pot, telling him to prep the water. The redhead stares at the fruit like it is alien tech, deadass asking if the bright red center is some kind of weird raw meat, which the chef instantly shoots down. Next up, the kid picks up a whole raw bird, completely baffled because it does not look like a dungeon monster. Chuckling, Cheolho drops the lore that it is just a regular chicken, reminiscing about how they had those back in Hispan too. But the real jaw-dropper hits when Khan lifts a literal mandragora, looking like his brain just short-circuited. The chef casually mentions he just picked them up, prompting Khan to freak out and warn him that those roots are lethal. It turns out, their heavy dark energy is exactly what gives them an intense cooling vibe. Plus, they pack a sweet, crunchy bite that levels up pretty much any recipe. Curious about the core ingredients, Khan asks what is going inside the bird, and Cheolho lists off the holy trinity: rice, garlic, and sliced mandragora. Fast forward a bit, and the broth is bubbling up, promising a high-tier bowl of healing chicken soup. But right as the aroma hits, The front door chimes, breaking the silence of the empty joint. The heavy hitters have arrived. Sang-ho, Chae-yun, and Gabby step up to the entrance, and the shadow cat instantly locks onto the incredible aroma flooding the room. Cheol-ho flashes a welcoming smile, and with a playful shove, a super awkward Khan steps forward to greet the squad. The chef casually introduces the flustered redhead as his nephew. Throwing out the menu, the cook offers up his signature chicken soup. Gabby gets initially hyped since it has been a hot minute since she ate meat, but she quickly hits the brakes, dropping the bombshell that she is strictly vegan. This leaves Cheol-ho scrambling to figure out a plant-based pivot. The steaming chicken broth and spicy mandragora kimchi hit the table looking absolutely divine. The ice witch grabs a drumstick, lightly dusts it with salt, and goes in for the taste test. The second that juicy meat hits her taste buds, her usual resting boss face totally melts into pure bliss. Sang-ho jumps in to hype up the kimchi, both of them absolutely blown away by the chef's insane culinary stats. Watching them vibe over the food, Cheol-ho turns to Gabby, double-checking her vegan status. Admitting his plant-based menu is pretty scarce, he throws out a wild card, fresh watermelon. Her eyes instantly light up like she just rolled a mythic item, and the hunter eagerly accepts the drop, hyped to try out the legendary fruit. Sure, eating it plain is fine, but the chef is about to show her a whole new meta for this dish. Whipping out his blade, he expertly hollows out the bright red core, dicing it into flawless, bite-sized cubes on the board. To max out the flavor profile, he tosses in fresh strawberries and sliced kiwis, creating the ultimate summer salad. He then loads the mixture right back into the empty watermelon shell, setting up the base for an epic dessert. For the ultimate finisher, he floods the bowl with ice-cold, fizzy soda to give it that sparkling kick. And just like that, a legendary tier hwake, or Korean watermelon punch, is crafted, looking like the most refreshing buff you could ever ask for. Not wanting to be left out, the Ice Witch steps up and casually flexes her magic to spawn instant ice cubes for the bowl. Cheol-ho leans in, briefing the Shadow Cat that this girl is the city's heavy-hitting protector mage, but Chae-yun immediately groans, complaining that her witch title is high-key cringe. Apparently, she earned that label back in the academy days after losing her temper and freezing an entire battlefield solid. She brushes off the chaotic memory with a laugh, while Cheol-ho is secretly mind-blown that his little diner is currently hosting an elite squad of famous hunters. His gaze locks onto the Shadow Cat, silently calculating the massive aura dripping off the Tier 1 powerhouse. In his mind, her stats rival a literal dungeon guardian, and her visuals are unmatched by anyone he has seen since his days in Eastpan. Flashing a blinding smile, Gabby thanks him for the feast, leaving the chef even more stunned. Fast forward to the aftermath, and that massive watermelon bowl is wiped completely clean on the table. Once the coast is clear, Khan leans in, whispering to his boss about how insanely gorgeous that customer was. Cheol-ho nods in agreement, noting that her visuals were literally too flawless to belong to a regular human. Boom. Plot twist. Gabby is actually a straight-up elf, which totally explains her unearthly aesthetic. The chef casually admits he had her scanned from the jump, thanks to his hidden elf detection skill. Paranoia spiking, Khan asks if she clocked their real identities, but Cholo shuts that down, confirming she lacks any sensory magic. But this realization hits different. It means mindless monsters are not the only things bleeding through the dimensional rifts. His expression darkens as he theorizes these rogue fantasy species might be plotting some massive shadow operation right under their noses. Snapping out of his dark thoughts, he barks Khan's name, making the redhead jump out of his skin. Tying his apron tight, Cheol-ho tells the kid to grab a spoon, because they are about to craft something highly exclusive. They get to work on a secret menu watermelon soju. Meanwhile, across town, our elite hunter trio finally rolls up to the guild, only to hit a massive brick wall with 0 leads on their phantom thief. Sang-ho immediately hits Gabby with the, "Okay, grandma" disrespect, but she fires right back, calling him an actual toddler. Meanwhile, the captain is totally stressing, whining about 0 witnesses and 0 victims, low-key complaining that a massive robbery could happen and nobody would even blink. But Cheyenne shuts that down real quick, flexing that her squad had eyes on the whole grid and wouldn't miss a single detail. Flashing a totally smug smirk, Sang-ho drops a troll comment, suggesting some random dude probably just munched all the missing greens. Gabby officially cancels the debate right there, but her face is serving major trust issues. This mystery is definitely living rent-free in her head. She openly admits she's holding 0 receipts, but her gut check screams that some seriously shady stuff is going down across the city. Hitting the exit, Sang-ho starts absolutely whining about trekking all that way just to get slapped with the most out-of-pocket plot twist. His mood instantly shifts to deep reflection, mind totally blown that the legendary Tae Jong-cheon is actually throwing in the towel and leaving the Temple Guild. Smash cut to a cinematic night shot, an older dude just gazing up at the stars, giving off major exhaustion vibes. He's deep in his feelings about how the timeline has glitched, remembering when lush green grass wasn't just paved over by concrete jungles. The aesthetic is totally ruined, the sweet floral scent is long gone, completely hijacked by the foul stench of monster guts coating everything. Pushing past his own zero battery energy, he barks orders at his squad to push forward and secure the remaining survivors. Wrapping things up, he calls a massive huddle with his guildmates and drops the mic, confirming this absolute headache of a mission is officially a wrap. Fast forward to morning, and we catch Chael-ho skimming the daily paper, where the Temple Guild's headline grabs his total attention. Enter Tiny Kuehl, waking up and immediately speedrunning to death grip her dad's leg. Dripping with pure, wholesome dad energy, he swoops the kiddo right off the floor, absolutely hyping up her fit check, which is literally just a single bow slapped on her ear. Trying to match his whole aesthetic, little Kuehl mimics him, acting like she's deeply analyzing the weather section of the broadsheet. But that hyper-focus breaks the second the munchies hit, and the tiny dragon's stomach literally drops a bass drop. She immediately starts begging for breakfast, blending whiny dad calls with the most adorable little beast snarls. Chael-ho totally zones into chef mode, debating the menu, because if they are throwing down a meal, it has to be an absolute banger. His life philosophy? Time is ticking, and you only score 3 daily shots to consume top-tier food. Bursting with affection, the cook lightly squishes Kuehl's chubby cheeks. Knowing a dragon's lifespan is basically infinite and way past the human timeline, he locks in his choice: classic white rice. Honestly, healthy whole grains wouldn't even dent his own stats anyway, so he deploys his little dragon on a side quest: go terrorize her older brother into waking up. The tiny menace sprints straight into Khan's room, finding him totally starfished across the mattress and sawing logs. Zero hesitation, absolute savage mode activated. She flying elbow drops right onto his stomach, jump scaring him straight out of dreamland. Catching that unfiltered shriek of agony from the kitchen, Chael-ho just drops a completely unapologetic smirk. Quest cleared. The camera pans to the breakfast spread, flexing a mouth-watering bibimbap, loaded with a perfect egg and fresh wild greens. Khan is absolutely hypnotized by the aroma, instantly volunteering to be the official mixer for the bowls. With the prep locked down, the trio dives headfirst into the feast, totally vibing with their morning eats. The flavor profile is an absolute nuke on their taste buds, turning a basic breakfast into a core memory of pure bliss. Flash forward, the bowls are totally wiped clean. Chael-ho points out Kuehl's recent glitchy behavior, noticing she literally blue screens into a food coma after every single bite. Khan totally normalizes it, dropping the lore that she's basically power leveling her growth through constant snacking and snoozing. His hype levels spike, predicting they are super close to discovering exactly what insane class the mini dragon is about to unlock. Mid-conversation, the front door chimes, triggering Chael-ho to pivot and welcome the fresh foot traffic. A super drippy dude in a crisp white jacket strolls in, immediately catching the scent of fresh grains. The chef tries to serve him a proper bowl, but the dude politely requests a quick hit of instant ramen instead. Smirking, the cook instantly reads his aura, guessing he's a cold rice kind of guy, which the fashionable teen immediately validates. Out of nowhere, the guy's eyes lock onto the daily paper, and his whole facial expression just drops, absorbing that massive headline about the top-tier hunters. A quick camera pan catches the temple logo stitched into his jacket. Massive plot twist. He's actually rolling with that exact squad. He straight up ghosts the spot without dropping a single syllable, leaving Chael-ho just staring at him against the diner's exterior. But right before dipping, the guy actually demolished his kimchi, hyping the flavor as totally god-tier, swearing the seasoning was built different. The chill vibe is instantly shattered when Agent Jae-woo and Manho Kim crash the diner, tossing a quick salute to Chael-ho at the entrance. Manho passes on the grub, claiming he's just there for a quick vibe check and a hello, while the agent looks like he's having a totally great day. Chael-ho slides over some ice water, dropping some small talk about how brutal the current heatwave is. Manho flexes that his endurance is basically maxed out lately, which the chef totally pins on those overpowered mandragoras he previously consumed. Shifting the mood, the agent points out that the local spear mage has to be totally spiraling over the latest update. He leans in, questioning if the chef caught the viral tea regarding the Temple Guild and their absolute legend of a leader stepping down. The young dude is visibly shook by the news, while the agent sighs, calling the whole thing a massive loss, considering the guy had maxed out street cred. Chael-ho digs for the backstory, prompting Jae-woo to drag up the dark lore from a whole decade ago. Flashback to Sang-ho's rookie era, an apocalyptic monster wave totally wiped out 4 of their 5 ultimate protectors. Taejong Cheon, an absolute final boss level tier 1 hunter, was the sole survivor left standing. Dripping with main character energy, he hard-carried the entire city through that catastrophic raid, cementing his status as an absolute legendary icon. Cut to the association's big boss, Jin Soo-yu, who fully saw this retirement coming but is still high-key hurting over the reality of it. Out of nowhere, knuckles rap against his office door. He calls them in, already sensing exactly who's waiting on the other side. The heavy door swings wide, revealing Taejong in the flesh, dropping a heavy, long-overdue greeting to the chairman. The two heavyweights grab seats for a deep talk, bathed in this insanely cinematic, golden hour sunset lighting up the office. The boss practically begs to know if this exit strategy is final, and Taejong firmly locks in his choice to quit. Desperate for closure, Jin Soo-yu demands the real tea behind the dropout. He just deadpans that the clock has finally run out. The president absolutely loses it. Snatching him by the collar, he screams his lungs out, throwing it in his face that he forged this entire guild from the dirt up. He desperately reminds him they were ride or die since day one. But Taejong? Bro doesn't even flinch. His eyes are pure ice. Moving with total calm, the captain sets his cup down and tells his old buddy to actually listen for once. He drops a heavy reality check about how nobody solos their way to the top because every single one of them bled together to carve out this empire. But right now, he is just completely burnt out and officially done carrying that crushing weight on his shoulders. Dropping a final farewell, he turns his back and walks out the door, leaving the president standing in dead silence, totally spiraling. Cut to Jinsu, who starts processing the sheer gravity of what just went down. Man, you just know that update hit young Sang-ho like an absolute truck. The heir apparent is already locked in, and it is none other than Hyuk Kang, an insanely hyped Tier 3 hunter. Meanwhile, outside, Taejong takes in the night sky, quietly vibing and soaking in what actually turned out to be a solid day. A second later, he chuckles, dragging himself for getting totally sentimental. Is he seriously getting that old? Right on cue, that rookie from the Temple Guild is chilling out on the curb, posted up right next to his slick motorcycle. Cutting back to the diner, we catch Cheol-ho absolutely locked in, dicing up fresh blocks of that spicy mandragora kimchi. The bell rings, and in walks Sang-ho side by side with Taejong. Sang-ho looks around totally baffled, swearing he had zero clue this hidden gem was even on the map. Flashing a grin, he asks what the chef is cooking up today. Cheol-ho keeps it straight, dropping that they are pushing a pure, comforting home-style spread. That definitely piques Sang-ho's interest. The chef sizes up the captain, factoring in his older age, and decides to just roll the dice. He plates it up for him anyway. Taejong grabs a seat, and let us be real, his entire aura screams absolute veteran energy. The old head makes it clear he is in zero rush, telling the chef to take his sweet time cooking up a masterpiece. Smiling, Cheol-ho pivots straight back to the kitchen, rolling up his sleeves to get to work. Outside, the rookie tosses up a peace sign to leave. The kid mentions he literally only tagged along to play GPS for the old guy. Taejong sighs, apologizing for the rookie's lack of manners, but Cheol-ho waves it off, respecting the hustle of a guardian. Lighting up, the seasoned hunter asks if he can grab a smoke break. Since the place is dead empty, the chef totally gives him the green light. Puffing away, Taejong catches a whiff of the steaming rice cooker and instantly hypes up the mouth-watering scent. He lets slip that it has been ages since he caught a fragrance like that, and you can practically see the nostalgia hitting him right in the feels. Cheol-ho takes a second to think about that, realizing everyone is chasing a piece of their past. That inspires him to whip up something seriously exclusive, a meal designed to unlock those core memories. The master chef pivots to brewing a rich jjigae, one of those legendary stews where every family fiercely guards their own secret recipe. He expertly folds the hearty soybean paste into fresh greens, letting it simmer to absolute perfection. To cap off this massive feast, he throws some premium Velto eggs into the frying pan, alongside a beautifully seared slab of garmin fish. Boom, the ultimate comfort spread is locked and loaded. Fluffy rice, crispy fish, piping hot stew, and that iconic mandragora kimchi. The war-torn hunter glares at the steaming platter, the smell completely rewiring his brain to an era long gone. He takes a single sip of the broth, and his eyes go wide from the insane flavor profile. It hits crazy close to home. Wasting no time, he scoops up a massive spoonful of the flawless, cloud-like white rice. A genuine smile breaks through. He swears it tastes exactly like his childhood dinners. But then, reality crashes back down. It has literally been 30 entire years since he relocated to Seoul, and those memories are getting super blurry. Time straight up evaporated, and he totally missed the years slipping right through his fingers. He drops some lore, explaining how back in the day, booking it to the capital was everyone's main goal. It was straight up do or die. A gritty visual flashes in his mind of a pitch-black highway, a brutal chapter he is permanently scarred by. We are talking about the massive evacuation from 30 years back, plus the catastrophic invasion that dropped 10 years ago. Cheol-ho nods, validating the old-timer's heavy trauma. We get a raw flashback to that insane evacuation era. 3 decades ago, nightmarish beasts randomly spawned, absolutely wiping entire countries off the map. Massive metropolises were instantly deleted, and unmeasurable numbers of civilians were brutally lost in the madness. That was the exact moment Taejong hit his awakening. Grabbing a blade for the very first time, he flexed his new god-tier stats and escorted his hometown survivors straight to the Seoul safe zone. Banding together, they forged the Temple Guild, an ultimate sanctuary for humanity's strongest. Once they finally patched the city back up, society somewhat hit play again, giving rise to the elite guardians. However, the nation formerly known as Korea was completely shrunken down to just the central Seoul district. And right when they thought the nightmare was over, a completely new, overpowered threat crashed the server. 10 years ago, the exact day literal boss-tier monsters rained from the clouds to deal maximum damage, the Great Invasion officially kicked off. We see Sang-ho getting totally blindsided by a brutal ambush. Out of nowhere, a spear violently jams right into the beast's massive jaws. A towering dragon ragdolls Sang-ho backward, leaving him completely exposed. The monster charges up and blasts an ear-shattering roar that violently shakes the entire war zone. Just a fresh rookie at the time, Sang-ho absolutely loses his mind in the panic, screaming at the top of his lungs that it is not his time to go. In comes Taejong pulling the ultimate clutch save. He parries the lethal strike at the absolute last microsecond, shielding the downed newbie from certain doom. Reaching his hand out, the alpha veteran orders young Sang-ho to get up and stay in the fight. The kid is literally shaking out of his boots, his face completely painted in blood. He is utterly stun-locked by pure horror. Taejong totally gets the vibe, knowing full well the kid just wants to sprint in the opposite direction. Yet, he hypes him up, dropping cold hard facts that true strength means stepping up even when you are terrified. He then demands to know the rookie's name. Voice cracking hard, he stutters out that he is Sang-ho Kim. Taejong instantly connects the dots, recognizing the kid as the freshly drafted guardian. Panicking, Sang-ho points out the monstrous titan closing the gap. The captain just casually pivots, telling the rookie to pay close attention to the masterclass he is about to deliver. Moving like an absolute blur, he readies his heavy blade right as the colossal dragon lunges. With one singular, god-tier swing, he unleashes a massive wave of golden aura. The energy blitzes straight at the beast, tearing the actual sky in half. The golden strike connects perfectly, slicing the dragon cleanly down the middle and completely obliterating a bunch of surrounding mobs in the crossfire. Sang-ho is left dead silent, completely awestruck, as the legendary veteran stands unfazed inside the crater. Soaked in crimson, Taejun flashes a wild grin over his shoulder. "This is the road we gotta walk," he declares. Young Sang-ho just stares, that absolute legend burning a permanent image into his brain. Snap back to the present day, he rips off his helmet. Eyes blazing with pure drive to carry the torch, Sang-ho scales a rugged hill. "Perfect spot for the boss to finally rest," he mutters. Then he spins around and bolts, totally locked in on wiping out every single threat in the zone. Gripping his spear, he swears on his life that 0 beasts are walking out of here alive. He slams the blade into the dirt, marking the captain's final resting place. It is the bare minimum to pay back the OG for saving his skin. Tears blur his vision as he viciously curses his own weakness. The sheer grief of losing his mentor absolutely shatters him. Hitting his knees, he begs the universe to send just one monster so he can unleash pure hell on it. Crushing powerlessness suffocates him. The past is locked in stone. Meanwhile, back at the diner, Cheol-ho drops a heavy question. Does the captain regret anything? Taejun crushes out his smoke and admits the brutal truth. Every single day felt like a massive regret. Why? Because keeping people breathing meant demanding absolute perfection. They had to make it out alive, no matter the bloody cost. He drops the harsh reality. 0 margin for error. One tiny screw-up, innocent people die. Suddenly, it clicks for Cheol-ho. Sang-ho's insane maturity makes total sense when you realize he shadowed the absolute GOAT. Even completely burnt out, the captain still forged an absolute beast of an heir. Taejun pushes himself up from the table. He locks in his choice to head back to his roots, finally hanging up his boots. Watching him, Cheol-ho truly grasps the brutal weight of the life the old man carried, because he also spent his existence taking hits for others. Taejun reaches for his wallet, but the chef waves him off, insisting the grub is completely on the house. He breaks it down. Anyone finally heading back home eats for free. It is pure respect. Cheol-ho just smirks. This joint is definitely weird, but it hits with such a warm, wholesome vibe. Heading out the door, Taejun gives a nod for the epic grub and drops one last request. Keep an eye on that reckless rookie. But Cheol-ho shuts that down fast. The kid is already an absolute tank on his own. Smiling, the veteran nods, fully recognizing the monster hunter Sang-ho morphed into. The word son almost slips out, but he bites it back and just tells Cheol-ho to chill. Tossing a final wave, he mentions it was a solid hangout. The chef watches him go. The captain strolls down the empty asphalt, his path glowing under the massive moonlight. Leaning in the diner's shadowy doorway, Cheol-ho realizes the hard truth. Real legends never die, they just fade out. Boom. Cut back to Taejun. Tearing up the asphalt on his chopper, he vanishes straight into the sunrise until he finally hits his drop point. He yanks off the helmet, a massive wave of peace washing over him. Gazing at his old stomping grounds, a warm grin spreads across his face. Voice thick with emotion, he breathes out, "I am finally home." Meanwhile, miles away, Sang-ho scales a jagged peak, totally locked in to keep the master's fire alive. Eyes watering, Sang-ho whispers his final goodbye to the old man, telling him to stay safe up there. He revs up his bike and instantly gets swallowed by the pitch-black forest, forging his own destiny. But wait, out of nowhere, the tiny Gumiho pops up right there, her blazing tails drifting in the air. Her mind drifts to the dude who just dipped, and the other guy who hooked her up with that glowing power stone. Flashing a sly smile, she remembers the ultimate cheat code. Acting cute means playing harmless and super friendly. Gazing out at the neon skyline, she whispers a sweet welcome to her brand new favorite human. "What is up, Jung Chun?" Hard cut to Cheol-ho trapped in a wicked nightmare. Ghostly voices chant his past alias Miro echoing through his skull. He violently snaps awake, screaming, "I am gonna be fine," while desperately sucking in oxygen. But the mind trip is far from over. His whole reflection warps like reality itself is violently cracking apart. Suddenly, he is dragged right back into his original dimension. Back to when he was an absolute unit of a knight, staring down the Demon King and his elite squad. One of the bosses sneers, asking if he was the guy who yanked him into this dead, pitch-black wasteland. Using a magic circle, the demon launches a brutal strike, but our guy literally catches it barehanded. As the raw magic sparks off his skin, he flat out states he does not understand a single word coming out of the freak's mouth. Without missing a beat, he crushes his fist, literally exploding his own heavy armor to unleash his sealed power. A blinding violet flash detonates from the runic circle, exposing the insane god-tier stats he had been keeping on the down low. Deep in the dream, Cheol-ho claps back with blazing golden energy, clashing against the enemy's dark magic. With one savage punch, he obliterates the mystical shield, charging up the ultimate finisher. Boom! Cheol-ho jerks awake for real this time, his heart hammering against his ribs after that intense sleep paralysis demon. Sweating and super groggy, he rubs his temples, while morning birds chirp outside. But a sudden crash in the living room makes him flinch. He spots Khan sprawled on the floor, looking absolutely spooked out of his mind. Khan yells that his aura just felt like pure killer intent, frantically asking what he was plotting. Cheol-ho instantly drops an apology, realizing his crazy nightmare juice just leaked out into the real world. He sighs hard. It has been a whole 10 years since the war wrapped up, but that PTSD is still clinging to him. He figures the nightmare triggered because of the news about the massive soul invasion. Still, he squints. The timing feels way too sus to just be a coincidence. Reliving the exact moment he squared up against the Demon King in his sleep, he just stares out the glass, totally doubting they will ever cross paths again. Snap back to reality. Tiny Kuehl is shouting for Cheol-ho, who just stands there, arms folded, taking in the domestic chaos. It takes a second to register. The wall is absolutely covered in crayon scribbles. He lets out a heavy breath, remembering he is dealing with a literal toddler. Crouching down to inspect the abstract masterpiece, he listens as Kuehl excitedly announces that chicken is on the menu for today. He points at a chaotic blob, guessing it is a chicken, which totally baffles the kid. Then he squints at another drawing, trying to figure out if it is a fish or a weirdly buff mermaid. Scooping the tiny menace into his arms for a serious chat, she instantly nuzzles his cheek and drops the daddy bomb. Boom. Cheol-ho loses all his tough guy aura in 1 second. Time for a negotiation. He promises to whip up some fire-fried chicken if she scrubs that wall spotless. Out of nowhere, Khan crashes through the door, screaming for Cheol-ho and demanding a full rundown of the situation. Never missing a beat, Cheol-ho immediately tags Khan in, ordering him to teach the kid how to scrub a wall like a pro. The super-hyped toddler throws another daddy his way, leaving Khan visibly salty over their tight bond. Completely ignoring the drama, Cheol-ho declares a grocery run and dips, leaving Khan on babysitting duty. Smash cut to a chaotic street market popping off with insane festival vibes. We catch up with him bagging a massive mountain of raw poultry, mentally prepping to feed a serious monster appetite. The stall owner hypes him up, saying the whole block is celebrating today. He nudges Cheol-ho to go check the main plaza, teasing some kind of exclusive drop happening live. Without warning, a massive metallic grinding noise shakes the block as some colossal machinery powers up. A towering mechanical golem straight up breaches through the crowd. The mob goes absolutely feral over the epic reveal. Just chilling in the sea of hype, Cheol-ho analyzes the tech until Gabi spots him and shouts out from across the way. Rolling up to him, she flexes that she is here catching the live beta test of the brand new ogre model. She breaks it down. It is a manually piloted combat mech. Instantly, old memories click for Chilho. He has definitely seen these bad boys in action. He runs the stats in his head. Absolute tanks against massive beasts, but they come with a brutal set of drawbacks. Their fatal flaw? Way too clunky to catch anything small and fast. Curious, he asks if manually piloted means some dude is literally strapped inside driving the thing. Then it clicks. The guy behind the wheel is Gearwork, literally one of the top 3 rank 1 hunters breathing. Lore drop. You cannot just jump in. A pilot has to tank insane levels of pure mana radiation, a totally broken and rare trait. Right on cue, the Jumbotron flashes to the pilot. Golem Master Hun Kim is up there, flashing a giant smile and hyping up the fans. Chiolho does the math. Fire tech, but way too expensive to ever turn a decent profit. Show is over for him. He gives Gabi a peace out, and she quickly asks if his spot is open for business. Lighting up with a smile, she claims that is a huge win, and promises to slide by his joint soon. Fast forward, the city goes dark, golden hour fades, and our overpowered chef finally hits his front door. But the second he pushes the door open, he freezes. There is a massive puddle drenching his floor, and some mysterious shadow just chilling in his living room. Turns out, it is a literal water spirit. An Undine is just hanging out with Tiny Kuehl. Khan strolls in, busting a gut, asking who just randomly spawned a high-tier summon. Throwing his hands up like a hype man, he officially drops the news. Kuehl just unlocked her class. She is a straight-up elementalist. The red-headed warrior breaks the lore down. Because her mom was a literal blue dragon, pulling a water spirit was practically in her DNA. Right on cue, Kuehl tackles the Undine in a massive hug, calling the glowing water orb Mommy. Chiolho is just standing there buffering. Khan awkwardly chimes in, asking if the summon is high tier. Chiolho does not even hesitate to confirm. His mind is racing. It has been an eternity since he witnessed a spirit spawned purely for vibes instead of combat. The whole scene is absolutely surreal. Time for a quick lore breakdown. These ethereal beings phase in from a completely different dimension, strictly dropping into 4 distinct elemental categories. Visuals hit the screen. 4 massive dimensional rifts rip open, flexing just how insane the cosmology of this universe truly is. The demon realm, the spirit world, Espan, and Earth, all flawlessly linked together. Chiolho just blanks for a second, his brain fighting for its life to process this massive info dump. Shaking it off, he pivots hard. He glares at Khan, demanding to know if the dude actually taught the toddler how to clean up her graffiti. Boom, the Undine flexes her magic. Partnering up with Kuehl, they blast the grime away in a split second. Seeing her crazy new awakening, Chiolho decides this calls for an epic victory feast. Cut to the kitchen. He goes full chef mode, unsealing a massive bowl of raw chicken like a weapon being prepped for battle. He ruthlessly dredges the cuts in seasoned flour, declaring that crispy fried chicken is headlining tonight. History check. 30 years ago, a massive fried chicken meta took over the world, spawning insane flavor combos. Prep work done. He plunges the battered pieces straight into bubbling hot oil. The sizzle is absolutely deafening. But let us be real. No matter how wild the meta got, the absolute greatest foundation was always the original crispy classic. He plates the masterpiece. Khan practically loses his mind over the aroma, while little Kuehl locks in for the feast. The kid sinks her teeth into a drumstick. That crunch is legendary. It is her first legit, god-tier meal. Chiolho is just hawking her face, sweating over the upcoming review. Face completely covered in grease, she blasts out an adorable scream of pure hype. The flavor literally blowing her mind. Watching her ascend to food heaven, Khan violently protests that he cannot hold back another second, and dives in. But Chiolho suddenly goes dead serious. He drops a harsh truth. In his dimension, how you eat fried chicken straight up exposes your soul. His expression goes dead serious, locking eyes with Khan before demanding to know exactly which piece he plans on devouring first. The redhead instantly sweats bullets, gulping down his anxiety while totally lost about this sudden intense vibe. Cornered, he grabs the chicken neck and questions what a random piece of meat is supposed to prove. Catching his terrified look, Chiolho bursts into laughter, tossing his hands up and admitting he was totally messing around. He tells the crew to dig in, but Kuehl absolutely demolishes the food so fast that Khan gets left with literally nothing. Chiolho just smirks, claiming he saw that coming from a mile away. To wash it down, he cracks open a cold beer, hyping it up as the ultimate combo for fried chicken over soju. Clinking their mugs together, the squad cheers to another successful grind. Khan finally scores a bite, and his eyes practically bulge out of his skull. He is absolutely mind-blown by the flavor. Right then, Chiolho flawlessly strips a chicken wing clean off the bone, leaving the redhead entirely speechless at the flex. Khan whines about dodging the annoying bones, earning another round of chuckles from Chiolho. Out of nowhere, a massive boom echoes through the room, making tiny Kuehl jump out of her skin. She stares blankly out the window, totally confused by the ruckus. A split second later, a massive array of fireworks completely lights up the night sky. The sudden flash catches the whole gang off guard. Cheol-ho quickly pieces together that the festival is still popping off, whereas Khan straight up thought they were under attack. Scooping Kuehl into his arms, he gently breaks down what fireworks actually are, instantly melting away her sudden anxiety. Watching her face light up, he realizes this poor kid has never actually experienced the outside world, prompting him to ask when she is finally going to shapeshift. Khan confidently states the transformation is right around the corner, making Cheol-ho wonder out loud if she is going to start spitting flames. Flashing a cocky grin, the redhead confirms she absolutely will. He admits he is counting down the seconds until it happens. Ultimately, he starts daydreaming about hooking her up with fresh outfits and kicks, ready to show her everything the world has to offer. Cut to a completely different location, where a brand new golem is undergoing intense testing, slamming a gigantic drill straight through solid steel. However, the pilot is seriously annoyed, whining that the mech feels insanely sluggish. He also points out that the mana flow is completely out of whack. Exhausted beyond belief, the mech operator, Hoon Kim, drags himself into the locker room, hoping to finally catch a break. Instead, he gets jump-scared by a mysterious woman, casually reminding him that he just walked into the guy's changing area. He immediately fires back, joking that her old age must be the reason behind her weird nickname. Hoon Kim then starts groaning about his empty stomach, but the girl cuts him off, revealing she already locked down a fire spot to eat. He tries to hit her with another boomer joke, but she brushes it off, dropping the pin for a spot over in Seodamun. The conversation shifts as she mentions Captain Cheon stepping down, noting that Song-ho is absolutely spiraling over the news. Hoon Kim admits it is a massive bummer, but agrees the legendary captain has definitely earned a permanent vacation. Wearing a completely heartbroken expression, Gabby opens up about her own tragedy, grieving the fact that she does not even have a hometown to retire to anymore. Quickly pivoting, she asks for the intel on the newly discovered Mana Stone. He hypes it up, claiming the energy density packed inside is practically off the charts. He verifies it was pulled straight from the fresh dungeon, adding a dark twist. The entire zone gives off major bad vibes. Gabby chimes in, pointing out the creepy lack of monsters, and how the sky just started radiating an eerie, unnatural aura. Right on cue, a mysterious pendant starts glowing brightly, while the pitch-black sky acts as a grim warning that an absolute nightmare is about to crash down. The camera pans back to our main guy, who is already feeling the heavy energy shift, bracing himself for whatever chaos is about to drop. Kasim, the loyal butler, drops some lore, revealing he has been guarding the ancient artifacts ever since the brutal war wiped most of them out. Back in the day, even legendary dragons would literally shake in their scales, running for the hills just hearing the name Miro Lycus. Snapping back to reality, Cheol-ho whips out a scanner, validating that the atmosphere is completely saturated with raw magic. Rival hunters roll up to the excavation site, sensing that this zone is an absolute goldmine. But Cheol-ho watches his device literally fry itself, realizing the power level here is way too insane to measure. Suddenly, a massive, jagged fissure rips right through the sky above them, cementing the fact that things are about to go horribly wrong. The spatial tier shatters like glass, vomiting out toxic red energy and tearing open a massive gateway to another dimension. Deep inside the void, a colossal steel door magically forms out of absolutely nothing, instantly unleashing a swarm of grotesque, massive beasts that look like roided out, rage-fueled boars. On the ground level, the raiding party goes into total panic mode, forcing their commander to scream his lungs out, desperately trying to organize a shield wall. He commands an immediate emergency evacuation for the civilians, screaming that they are dealing with highly evolved killing machines. The squad quickly throws up multiple energy shields, bracing themselves to tank the absolute meat grinder charging their way. Unfortunately, one of the elite officers gets caught lacking, eating a devastating, point-blank tackle from a frenzied beast. Watching his superior taking heavy damage, Sang-ho Kim goes full berserk, sprinting headfirst at the monster. Sang-ho Kim freezes in pure horror, his brain refusing to process the absolute bloodbath happening in front of him. Flexing raw, unadulterated power, the creatures violently smash into the earth, launching heavily armored hunters into the air like ragdolls. Surrounded by absolute pandemonium, his entire body is consumed by suffocating dread, while the deafening crunch of battle rings out from every direction. Locking eyes with the alpha beast, he furiously barks orders at his squad to drop everything and prioritize pulling the injured out of the combat zone. Hovering above, the alpha core throbs with a sickening, dark aura, violently sparking with jagged lightning bolts. Down in the dirt, a lone fighter gets entirely swarmed, his escape paths totally blocked off. Unleashing a terrifying war cry, the abomination bulldozes straight through the vanguard shields, instantly turning their defensive line into dust. A second warrior fails to check his blind spot, letting out a gut-wrenching shriek as vicious claws tear into his back. Pushed to the absolute limit, the commander realizes he is facing an impossible, nightmare scenario. In this split second, he contemplates calling a full retreat to protect the unarmed workers, which would mean leaving his vanguard to die. However, the haunting visual of his slaughtered brothers in arms crushes his soul, causing him to freeze up. Right then, an older mentor voice echoes in his mind, warning him about the agony of waking up every single day drowning in regret. He cannot help but wonder how many times the old-timer stared pure terror in the face and had to make this exact call. Every single instinct is screaming at him to just dip and run away, but there is zero chance he is backing down. As the flashback fades out, the reality hits him stepping up to the plate, even when his knees are shaking, is the only thing that actually matters. Completely locked in, he promises to prove his absolute worth to the veteran captain. Screaming at the top of his lungs, he declares his squad is counting on him and claims the absolute front line. Gripping his polearm tight, he completely blitzes straight into the massive monster swarm. His offensive is absolute cinema, shredding through multiple beasts in a single, lightning-infused sweep. Refusing to give up even an inch of ground, he keeps carving a brutal path right through the absolute chaos, but the gauntlet drags out, and panic sets in as his mana completely bottoms out mid-swing. Despite hitting empty, the alpha monster keeps pushing forward, suffocating him with zero room to breathe. Suddenly, a squad mate screams out a desperate warning as a massive energy beam blasts straight toward the creature. Standing entirely alone against the raid boss, he boldly claims his crew has his back. Channeling absolutely every ounce of his remaining willpower, he clutches his weapon, fully prepared to brawl to the death. Dripping with blood, he unleashes a confident roar, promising to bulldoze an escape route for the whole squad. Launching himself off the ground with insane verticality, he dive bombs with his blade, locked directly onto the massive boar skull. The strike connects flawlessly, triggering a massive shockwave of purple aura that entirely swallows the beast. The sheer kinetic impact of the slam straight up gouges an energy crater across the entire battlefield. When the dust finally settles, drenched in gore, he glares off into the distance, his pupils flaring with raw dominance. Insane levels of power surge through his veins while deep purple static violently arcs off his physique. The commander barks out an order to form up, while a panicked subordinate desperately tries to flag a fresh incoming threat. Tragically, they are a second too slow, because a second, entirely unhinged boss monster is already ripping its way out of the rift. The dude is completely mind-blown, standing paralyzed by the absolutely chaotic spawn. Desperation kicking in, he commands the entire party to fall back, volunteering to solo the frontline block. The nightmare creature unleashes a deafening screech, cementing the horrible reality of a double boss raid. Bleeding out, he prays backup is on the way, knowing he just needs to stall for time. Intrusive thoughts hit like a truck, making him question if his health pool can even take another hit. Out of nowhere, an insanely bright flash flashbangs the entire zone, and a shadowy silhouette just drops in. The commander whips his head around, completely shook by the sudden drop-in from this total mystery guy. His rookie is basically an absolute statue, clueless about who this overleveled player could possibly be. Without warning, the entire mob starts crumbling into straight ash, fading away into glowing blue particles. The raw aura pressure is so ridiculously heavy that even the raid boss gets completely dusted. Literally, in a fraction of a second, the war zone goes totally dead silent, leaving the surviving squad thoroughly mind-boggled. The entire monster wave got completely wiped, replaced only by eerie black feathers drifting down from the sky. Sprinting over to his downed rookie, the boss desperately checks his vitals. Scrambling to his feet, the kid brushes it off, swearing he only took minor chip damage despite nearly getting completely flatlined. Realizing the aggro is gone, the leader snatches his arm, demanding an immediate tactical retreat. Supporting his battered teammate, he screams to evacuate the dungeon instance before things go sideways again. Yet, glancing back at the totally wiped clearing, his brain literally cannot process the massive carry that just occurred. Perched way up on a high ground vantage point, our main character observes the aftermath, processing the insane flex. Letting out a deep sigh, he recalls the specific side quest to babysit that highly reckless rookie during the raid. Dropping down onto the rocky overhang, he realizes saving their skins just created a massive, unwanted mystery. Cutting to another scene, a fellow hunter suddenly clocks that his guildmaster, previously stuck at rank 2, just got a massive power spike. Smirking slightly, Yahello does the math and realizes this brutal life-or-death clash just promoted the guy into being the 4th, rank 1 absolute unit in all of Korea. His train of thought gets brutally interrupted by his stomach growling like crazy, signaling that his stamina bar is running on empty. Staring out at the golden hour sky, He makes grabbing a massive meal his absolute #1 priority. The camera cuts, and we catch him trying to fire up a tiny portable grill for a camping dinner with Khan. Khan instantly starts roasting the weak flames, telling him to hold up. Right on cue, Cheolho casually drops in carrying a massive stack of lumber, completely leaving Khan absolutely speechless. Khan just glares at the dude, internally raging that it took him a straight 50 years to max out his own elemental skills. Out of nowhere, Tiny Q waddles dangerously close to the open flame, sending Khan into an absolute panic attack. Looking completely unbothered, she just tilts her head, questioning if this weak stuff is what they call real fire. Without skipping a beat, she quick summons Undine, popping a highly complex magic circle dead center in the camp. The water spirit casually waves its hand, charging up a hydro spell to completely shut down the campfire. It instantly dumps an absolute tidal wave across the setup, instantly killing the heat and absolutely drenching the entire squad. Standing in a puddle, Cheolho lets out a heavy sigh, admitting he has to go farm more wood to reboot the whole operation, especially since tonight is a premium feast, literally featuring the premium pork belly from the raid boss he just clapped. Khan goes in for a sneaky bite, but Cheolho instantly blocks him, telling the old man to chill for a second. He proceeds to give a masterclass on Korean barbecue, perfectly rolling up a massive lettuce wrap packed with the premium drop. The redhead takes one massive bite, and his eyes practically roll back, hyping up the insane flavor profile. Flipping the meat over the coals, Cheolho casually checks if Khan is still deep diving into the local dungeon lore, dropping some heavy intel. He mentions running into a massive mob of battle boars inside the mana crystal mines earlier today. He points out their aggro levels were totally off the charts, and their ivory tusks looked nothing like the standard local spawns, making things infinitely sketchier. The literal rift energy signatures did not match any known dungeon gates, dropping Khan jaw straight to the dirt. Locking in completely serious, Cheolho confirms his darkest theory. Earth might be secretly linked up to an entirely different, highly dangerous dimension. The camera pans out, revealing a massive cosmic web. Countless portals are tearing through the universe, hinting at a threat way bigger than anyone realized. Cut to the National Hunters Association HQ. The place is a total madhouse, but right now, the higher-ups are staring down a mission report that makes zero sense. It covers the Incheon dungeon raid. Kim Sang-ho breaks it down. One blinding flash swallowed the zone, and boom, every single monster just got wiped from existence. His boss frowns, admitting the backup squad saw the exact same glitch in reality. But instead of spiraling over the mystery, the chief pivots. He hits Sang-ho with some massive news. Our guy just officially hit Master Tier. Hyped out of his mind, the newly crowned top ranker cuts right to the chase. So, where is the bag? He jokes about a pay bump, before immediately groaning that his insane schedule leaves him literally zero time to swipe his card. The chief tosses him a lifeline, offering some PTO. But Sang-ho is a real one. He rejects the vacation, demanding a fat bonus check for his entire squad instead. The big boss then asks about his next class evolution. Sang-ho drops the name, Iron Heart. This is a game-breaking build that literally hands you an extra life and cranks your defense stats through the roof. Gripping his fist, Sang-ho visualizes the grind, knowing that mastering this absolute tank of an ability will make him completely unbreakable. His mind flashes back to the bloodbath, realizing this exact power could have bought his crew those crucial extra seconds. The chief respects the play and sends him off, promising to keep digging into the anomaly. Strutting out the door, Sang-ho casually tosses out a later, Gramps, leaving the old man grumbling about this generation's lack of respect. Once the elevator doors shut, Sang-ho's smile drops. That blinding light did not feel hostile. Honestly, it felt weirdly welcoming. He replays the phenomenon in his head, questioning if they just witnessed a cosmic glitch or a straight-up guardian angel. The pieces click together. Both bizarre events are tied to an aura of unimaginable, god-tier power. Right now, their only play is praying that whatever flexed that energy never turns into a villain. The camera snaps back to the KBBQ joint. Sizzling prime cuts hit the grill, and a fresh bottle of soju crashes onto the table, setting the mood. Someone tips the bottle, filling a shot glass to the brim, locking in the late-night vibes. Khan knocks back his drink, his expression hardening as he pulls Chul-ho into some deep talk. He asks the million-dollar question. Was this so-called Demon King actually a menace? Chul-ho admits the guy was built different, but smugly adds that he obviously hit harder. Khan leans in, asking if Chul-ho still holds pure hatred for his nemesis. The grill flames violently erupt. The screen bleeds into a flashback, revealing an absolute massacre. The innocent locals who took Chul-ho in were slaughtered by the demonic horde. Holding terrifying levels of strength, our boy waged a one-man war to crush the dark forces into dust. But this was not a quick boss fight. It was a grueling, savage bloodbath spanning years, leaving him completely isolated in a graveyard of his fallen comrades. His eyes burn with absolute rage. As he admits, he loathed the Demon King with every fiber of his being. The visuals showcase him unleashing a massive, world-shaking spell, ultimately conquering the entire realm. He finally corners the ultimate boss, demanding to know if he is the legendary tyrant. But here is the insane twist from the past. The demon boss actually asks who dragged him into this garbage wasteland. Snapping back to the present, Chul-Ho drops a massive lore bomb. The ultimate villain was just another isekai victim. Khan glitches for a second, totally lost, but Chul-Ho swears it is the dead truth. Both of them got kidnapped by the same dimension. Khan is mind-blown, questioning who has the stats to summon a literal demon lord. Curious, the redhead then asks how Chul-Ho ever managed to log out of that hellscape and return to Earth. We dive back into the memories. Our guy spent a brutal 10 years hunting for an exit until he finally threw in the towel. But right at his breaking point, a cosmic rift tore open, showing the concrete jungle of his home dimension. He wraps up the epic tale, swearing on his life that this is exactly how he made it back. Chul-Ho looks stunned when Khan genuinely replies that he buys every single word. Chilling by the embers, the redhead doubles down, validating his bro's crazy trauma. Pushing himself up, Chul-Ho listens as Khan acknowledges the insane mental toll of surviving that nightmare solo. Flashing a pained smirk, our protagonist just nods, the weight of his dark history pressing down. They clink glasses, and Chul-Ho gets real. He still hates the villain's guts, but part of him pities the guy. He knows exactly how traumatizing it is to get forcefully dropped into a hostile, alien universe. At the end of the day, both overpowered beings were just drowning in pure, brutal isolation. He confesses that his sleep is totally ruined by night terrors, where the ghost of his past identity, Miro Lycos, constantly hunts him. Inside his head, the apocalyptic war replays on an endless loop, forcing him to watch his found family die all over again. The survivor's guilt is a rusty spike driven straight through his heart, bleeding him dry every single night. He literally had to speedrun bottles of liquor just to knock himself out and dodge the trauma. He admits that if his mental stats were not maxed out, this amount of grief would have completely shattered his sanity. Suddenly, he violently snaps awake, heavily questioning if he actually did lose his mind out there. Letting out a massive breath, he realizes it was just another bad trip. He looks down to find Gyul softly snoring right on his lap. The tiny furball is rolled into a donut, totally knocked out and tucked perfectly under the covers. The heavy angst melts away instantly. He just vibes with the wholesome energy for a second. Moving like a ninja, he slides her onto the mattress, totally confused about how she even snuck in. Glancing across the room, he spots Khan, who is passed out in an absolutely cursed, unhinged sleeping posture. Letting out a quiet laugh, he realizes that despite the cosmic trauma, this is just a normal, chill morning. Shaking off the sleep, he heads down to the main floor of the restaurant, gearing up to grind through another shift. Suddenly, an elderly dude yells out to him. Stopping in his tracks, our guy glances over his shoulder, totally thrown off. Staring at the geezer, he points to himself, wondering if he is actually the one being flagged down. So, this elderly lady rolls up out of nowhere, asking for directions to the Arirang train. Chul-Ho is just standing there like, does a train with that name even exist? Before he can even process it, she starts dropping heavy rants about kids these days, shuffling away and leaving our guy completely baffled. He swears he has never seen her in the neighborhood before. Figuring he would look into this ghost train situation later, he totally shelves the mystery. The dude has a restaurant to open, after all. He instantly shifts into work mode, violently scrubbing down the prep stations and sharpening his kitchen blades to a crazy edge. One final wipe down, and the entire setup is practically glowing, totally locked and loaded for the morning rush. Right on cue, the front chime rings. In walks customer number 1, dropping a casual morning greeting. Jae-woo Choi snags a seat at the bar, hyped up and demanding the daily special. Chul-Ho shoots him down gently, explaining the kitchen is barely awake, but promises to throw together a killer plate of fried rice. Out of nowhere, the sky just cracks open, dumping rain as Jae-woo points out. That monsoon season officially dropped. Tuning out the idle chatter, Chul-Ho keeps his eyes on the wok, low-key wondering if this guy knows anything about the whole mine disaster. Sliding the steaming plate across the bar, the conversation flips. Jae-woo randomly brings up Granny Arirang roaming the block. Turns out, she is a local scavenger hunting for scraps, a piece of lore Chul-Ho was completely clueless about. Clicking the pieces together, the chef confirms he literally just bumped into her, rocking a heavy scarf in dead heat. He drops the detail about her weird train question, and Jae-woo shakes his head, claiming the train is a total myth. Scraping his plate clean, the dude drops some heavy history, explaining how her entire generation suffered massive casualties, a collective trauma they literally never shook off. Stepping back out into the downpour, Jae-woo throws up a peace sign, warning Chul-Ho to just give the old-timer her space. Staring blankly at the storm, Cheolho gets hit with a deep realization. Time moves on, but brutal truths stay frozen. He realizes this entire reality is still bleeding from historical wounds. It finally clicks for him that both the people eating his food and the wandering grandma are dragging their unseen baggage through life. Smash cut to the next morning, where our guy is dragging himself through his routine, aggressively scrubbing his teeth in the mirror. Boom. A thought hits him like a truck, making him violently spit suds into the basin. He sprints into the main room, catching Khan hyping up Kuel. The little creature is literally radiating blinding light, pushing hard to evolve. The neon blue aura flickers and dies out, looking like the morphing process hit a wall. Instead of a sick upgrade, she just pops right back into her original squishy shape, leaving Khan to loudly stamp a big fat fail on the attempt. Cheolho questions if they are missing a cheat code, but Khan shoots him down, stressing that Phase 1 is always the most brutal grind. Suddenly, a wild brainwave hits the chef. What if wrapping the tiny beast in human gear triggers something? He snags some random toddler threads and drapes them over Kuel as a test run. The fabric totally swallows her, and he pictures her morphing into a chaotic 5-year-old kid. Without warning, she reignites. This time, the blast of blue aura is absolutely blinding. Insane energy waves pulse violently around her tiny frame, locking the evolution into high gear. As the blinding flash finally clears the room, the smoke settles to reveal an actual, breathing, little, human child. Cheolho is straight up paralyzed, brain totally short-circuiting at the visual. Catching sight of him, the kid goes wild, sprinting his way, and screaming out for her daddy. But her tiny legs betray her mid-sprint, sending her skidding wildly across the hardwood. Flexing insane reaction time, Cheolho dives and snatches her mid-air before she even grazes the floor. Completely unbothered, she flashes the brightest smile ever and drops the daddy title again, showing off a row of tiny baby teeth. Our guy is left frozen on his knees, gripping her tiny hands, while his mind scrambles to download this insane new reality. Khan instantly scoops the kid up, absolutely losing his mind and hyping her massive dub. He starts aggressively flexing about his little sister, leveling up, but Cheolho hits the brakes, warning that taking her out in public is a massive red flag. He commands Khan to hunt down a decent fit for her, pivoting back to kitchen duty. The camera cuts straight to the concrete outside, right as a massive storm unloads. Gripping an umbrella, Cheolho stomps down the wet steps, brainstorming how to flip some leftover ingredients into a solid meal. Squinting through the absolute downpour, he locks eyes with the exact same elderly wanderer, posted up directly in his path. She shuffles forward, quietly asking if she can dodge the storm under his roof for a minute. Without missing a beat, he waves her inside, but she instantly rejects the offer of hot tea, claiming she has to push through the monsoon. That rejection rings huge alarm bells in his head, especially when he realizes her thick dialect just magically disappeared. Pivoting on her heels, the wanderer prepares to dive back into the brutal weather, but Cheolho intercepts her, forcing his only umbrella into her hands so she dodges a freezing, wet disaster. Stepping into the gray, she drops one final question, asking if his spot slings black bean noodles. Caught off guard, he admits his pantry might be lacking, but promises to do a quick inventory sweep. He spins around, yanking the heavy door open to retreat to his culinary sanctuary. Glancing back over his shoulder, the mysterious lady and her janky cart are already ghosting into the fog. He just freezes in the doorway, trying to process the incredibly creepy vibes of that whole interaction. While the storm continues to rage, a breaking news banner flashes on screen, hyping the threat of water-based beasts. The anchor breaks down how low-tier mobs like kelpies get massive stat buffs during monsoons. Smashing that tension, Hun Kim violently slams his glass onto the wood, whining at the top of his lungs for the chef. Completely smashed and begging for relationship advice, the dude demands to know the cheat code to impressing a girl. Dropping his voice, Hun spills some deep lore, confessing his romance experience is literally limited to one person from before he crossed into the other world. His eyes glaze over as he flashes back to a raid years ago, where some absolute boss of a woman pulled his life out of the fire inside a dungeon. Cheolho smirks, noting that overpowered women are top tier, and the drunk pilot vigorously nods in agreement. Knocking back his beer, Cheolho stares off into the distance. He gets it. The exact same twisted fate dragged him down too. His mind flashes back to the absolute goat of his past, Miro Likas, a total powerhouse with a heart of gold. Just the thought of her hits him like a ton of bricks, unearthing buried emotions. Hoon Kim keeps venting, complaining that his crush is practically an ice queen, but honestly, that toxic vibe just makes him fall harder. Cheolho raises an eyebrow. Wait, is he simping over the chick who literally saved his life? Hoon Kim furiously shakes his head. No shot. That woman is straight up maternal. The actual girl occupying his thoughts? She absolutely loathes him. Like, holding a blade to his throat levels of hate. He slams his fist against the table, completely triggered that she is crushing on Sang-ho instead. It completely blows his mind. Flashing a subtle smirk, Cheol-ho pats his shoulder, swearing to take this embarrassing secret to the grave. Hit me with another round, Hoon begs, just as the radio cuts through the chatter, broadcasting an urgent update about the Tomb of Rest renovations. The broadcast instantly kills Cheol-ho's vibe. The pilot tilts his head, completely clueless about the memorial, prompting a grim history lesson. It is a mass grave for the fallen. The body count was so astronomically high back then, they had to resort to mass cremations, etching their names into the cold stone. The heavy reality settles over Cheol-ho, but out of nowhere, bang, the diner doors swing open. A blonde hunter steps into the frame, radiating absolute boss energy. It is Yuna Lee, the legendary Queen of Blades. Before a single word escapes her lips, Hoon snaps his neck back, sensing his doom. Zero hesitation. She lunges, violently yanking him up by the collar, completely rattling his skull. Shooting daggers at him, she snarls, demanding to know if he is getting wasted on the job again. The pilot just sits there, completely shook. She orders him to quit goofing off, but our guy on the floor? He is totally mesmerized, practically swooning over her rage. Her eyes glow with a lethal, terrifying energy. She is barely warming up. Getting mercilessly dragged out by his clothes, the pilot somehow manages to yell out a quick 5-star review for the food. Yuna throws a polite nod, before tossing him into the pouring street. He whines about the downpour, begging her to share the umbrella. Zip it, she snaps, while literal razor-sharp blades materialize and vanish around her like a deadly aura. Watching the absolute chaos unfold, Cheol-ho shakes his head. The Queen of Blades definitely lives up to the hype. Now, he has to mop up this disaster. Then it clicks. Her sudden arrival means the local kelpies are acting up again. A dark shadow crosses his face. His gut screams that this monster outbreak is no joke. With the relentless rain hammering against the glass, he senses a massive storm brewing. Stepping into the back, he busts tiny Gyul red-handed, plotting a stealthy fridge heist. He scoops her up into the air, teasing her about her little criminal mastermind arc. She just giggles, throwing her arms around him and calling him Papa. But then, his eyes lock onto her lingering tail. The harsh reality hits. One day, she has to pack her bags for a spawn. What is the deal with that tail, anyway? Snapping him out of it, the toddler mimics his phrasing, proving her vocabulary is rapidly leveling up. Smiling warmly, he squeezes her tight, promising to protect her at all costs, until that inevitable goodbye. But the wholesome moment shatters. The front bell chimes, signaling an insanely early walk-in. Placing the kid down, he presses a finger to his lips. Who shows up at this hour? It is the elderly woman from before, stepping out of the shadows, breathing a sigh of relief that the lights are on. She immediately demands a steaming bowl of black bean noodles, impatiently checking the clock. Red flags instantly pop up. Her thick accent is suddenly back, and her entire vibe feels wildly off. Playing it safe, he triggers his hidden ability, firing up Detector Eye for a quick scan. The glowing blue status window pops up, 0 mana. She is a total normie, unawakened and fragile. But skimming the fine print, a heartbreaking truth drops. The poor grandmother is battling severe dementia. It hits him hard. Even top-tier restoration magic is completely useless against a fractured mind. If brain healing spells actually existed, his own agonizing night terrors would have been cured ages ago. Pushing the grief aside, he resolves to whip up the ultimate comfort food. Out of nowhere, a tiny head peeks over the counter. Gyul enters stealth mode, intensely analyzing their newest guest. She freezes in place, locking eyes with the granny like she is studying an alien. The older woman freezes too, utterly baffled by this bizarre toddler. Breaking the ice, Gyul struts over, happily swishing her monstrous tail. Panic spikes in Cheol-ho's chest. He starts sweating bullets, desperately praying she does not blow their cover. The grandmother squints, trying to process what species she is looking at. Gyul stiffens up the second the lady coos, asking who let a stray puppy inside. Without warning, she hoists the toddler into the air, comparing her to a fluffy childhood pet. Unfazed, the tiny demi-human proudly announces, "I am Gyul," completely blowing the granny's mind that this puppy can form complete sentences. Right on cue, Khan sprints into the scene, low-key freaking out over the kid fraternizing with a mortal. Cheol-ho holds his breath, analyzing the vibe to ensure everything is chill. Deeming it safe, he gives Khan the green light, tossing him guard duty just in case a crowd rolls in. Pivoting on his heel, he locks in on prepping that jjajangmyeon. Fun fact, this street food used to be practically free, but in this era, it is a luxury. Sourcing the authentic bean paste is a massive headache, turning a basic recipe into a culinary nightmare. Knowing the grandmother is running against the clock, he pulls out the ultimate cheat code, instant noodles. Throwing raw chunjang into a scorching wok, he fries it aggressively, locking in that rich, smoky, fire-roasted flavor. Tossing the noodles into boiling water, he aggressively folds the savory paste into chunks of meat and sweet onions. Sizzling perfectly in the pan, the legendary dish comes to life. The kitchen finally spits out a steaming bowl of Big Pig's signature black bean noodles. He slides the plate onto the table right as the old lady cracks up, totally entertained by little Chew's antics. Reality suddenly hits her. She's gotta bounce. Her grandson is waiting for dinner back home. Hearing this, Chiolho immediately pivots. He ducks behind the counter, rummaging around before bagging up a fresh portion for takeout. He slides the warm package across the register, giving her a quick heads up not to shatter the fragile bowl on her way. Overflowing with gratitude, she shoves a crumpled stack of cash directly into his palm. Chiolo blinks. These aren't just crinkled bills, they are ancient currency, basically relics from a whole different era. He brushes off the shock and bids her farewell. Chew flashes a totally adorable goodbye wave from the background. After that encounter, Grandma Arirang basically makes the restaurant her daily checkpoint. Every single visit, she grabs takeout for a totally different person. Tuesday, it is for her husband. Wednesday, the grandson. The catch? Not a single one of those loner bowls ever makes it back to the shop. Cholho knows she isn't swiping them maliciously, so he just hits up the local market and restocks the inventory. Zero complaints uttered. Smash cut to Cholho, strolling down a quiet sidewalk. He is deep in his own head, completely zoned out until his boots stop dead at the entrance of a cemetery named Resting Grave. Stepping through the iron gates, he spots a couple bawling their eyes out over a headstone. A heavy sigh escapes him. He knows damn well his parents aren't buried anywhere near here, because they never even got a grave. Shaking off the gloom, he tracks down the old lady, gently pulling her aside to remind her, this is literally a burial ground. He breaks it down for her. Leaving food out just spawns swarms of bugs, and crashing here in the freezing cold is a massive risk. Right on cue, a security guard rolls up. Barking orders, the guard threatens to trash her entire setup if she does not pack it up immediately. Cholho shoots a sharp glare to his right. His eyes narrow as things finally start clicking into place. Staring at a ratty, makeshift tent, he realizes this poor lady might actually be living out of a graveyard. Peeking inside, a seriously weathered photograph catches his eye. The grandma crawls into the cramped space, flashing a heartbreaking smile as she gets comfortable. With trembling hands, she grabs the framed memory off a beat-up trunk. She starts buffing the smudged glass, like it is her absolute most prized possession, completely lost in the nostalgia of better days. Watching her, Cholho gets hit with a brutal reality check. A smile does not always mean someone is happy. Sometimes, it is just a mask to bury the agonizing trauma underneath a defense mechanism he practically invented. Carrying that heavy vibe, he turns his back and trudges away from the tombstones. The atmosphere shifts violently as the sky cracks open, dumping absolute sheets of rain. Cut back to the noodle shop, where little Chew is practically vibrating with hype, plastered against the glass to watch the storm. Khan casually drops that the kid desperately needs a wardrobe upgrade, but the crazy downpour completely nuked their shopping plans. Chew starts straight up licking the condensation off the window, proving she is obsessed with water. Makes sense. She literally has that blue dragon energy. Without warning, an emergency broadcast hijacks the radio. Kelpies are spawning in the floodwaters. The siren wails on loop, locking the city down under a massive monster threat level. Chiolho immediately tosses the keys to Khan, telling him to hold down the fort. Man is already in motion. He vaults straight over the balcony, his instincts screaming that this situation is about to go horribly wrong. Explosive purple energy erupts from his core, launching him into the atmosphere like a missile locked onto the urban skyline. Cloaked in a terrifying dark aura, he slices right through the torrential rain at breakneck speeds. His face is dead serious, because when his gut drops like this, absolute chaos always follows. The camera pans over to the old woman, now mysteriously chilling on a transit bench. Looking wildly disoriented, she stumbles to her feet, totally clueless about what city she is in or how she even spawned there. Then her eyes lock onto a faded signboard. She finally made it to the mythical Arirang station, and perfectly on schedule. The roaring screech of heavy metal rips through the air as a massive locomotive pulls into the station. The beastly machine grinds to a halt, dead center in front of her. Pneumatic doors hiss open, unleashing a blinding white light that frames the shadowy silhouette of a tall guy waiting inside. He casually holds out a hand, leaving the grandma completely tripped out by the gesture. A smooth, mysterious voice echoes out, begging her to join him for the ride. A direct invitation to cross over. She actually chuckles, roasting the guy by saying he might be wearing a slick suit, but he still reeks of straight-up farm fertilizer. Suddenly, a tiny kid runs up screaming her name. Her heart melts. It is her precious grandson, Unho, right in front of her. But the longer she stares, the more the vibe gets creepy. The facial features of the boy are horribly warped and glitchy. Her eyesight completely fuzzes out, sending her into a full-blown panic attack as she realizes she literally cannot picture his face anymore. Dementia has violently hijacked her brain, fading her core memories into a heavily blurred, washed-out Polaroid. Boom, the dream sequence shatters into a million pieces, snapping her back to a lonely reality. Just an old woman getting totally drenched in the storm, looking like a tragic grayscale movie scene. It hits her that her mind is slipping away all over again. Out of nowhere, neon blue hooves smash into the muddy puddles inches from her face. A demonic water horse materializes, locking its sights on the helpless target. The beast creeps closer, aggressively sniffing the terrified lady to savor the fear before the kill. Its jaw unhinges, revealing rows of nightmare teeth, prepping to swallow the poor lady whole. But Chiolho drops in like an absolute unit, vaporizing the monster's skull into red mist with a brutal energy beam. Standing over the smoking carcass in the freezing downpour, he realizes his insane intuition was 100% spot on. Glancing down at the shattered takeout bowls, it clicks. The rotting food basically acted like a homing beacon for the beast. Suddenly, a panicked voice echoes through the rain, screaming that Grandma Arirang is trapped at the graveyard during this absolute monsoon. Chiolho whips around, his eyes turning ice cold, already mapping out his next move. Our hero blasts into the zone, right as a hunter squad pulls up to the exact same spot. The squad leader is completely tripping. He could have sworn a kelpie was materializing right there. But scanning the dirt, he spots the leftover ooze and a glowing mana crystal hard proof the beast actually spawned. Sangho Kim crouches down to inspect the glowing sludge, realizing a monster that massive had to be an absolute tank. He grips his fist until his knuckles turn white, questioning if that mysterious heavy hitter just wiped another boss. Either way, the crew scoops up the fragile elder to evacuate her to a secure zone. While being transported, she slips into a brutal night terror, desperately crying out for her grandson, Yunho. Heavy tears slice through her closed eyelids, radiating pure, unfiltered heartbreak. The camera pans down to a dropped picture frame, while a phantom whisper echoes out, begging the elder to let go and escape. Through the completely spiderwebbed glass, we see a faded portrait of her late husband. Smash cut to later, the midnight blackout swallows the entire city, dropping the audio to absolute zero. Cut to the diner. Chulho catches a rustle, spinning around to greet a late-night diner, but his brain short-circuits. The elder from the graveyard just shadow-dropped right in his doorway. She quietly admits the previous food bowls got smashed, handing over fresh replacements while whispering a deep apology for the hassle. That is when he clocks her entirely new aesthetic. She is rocking an elegant, pristine, traditional fit. Totally thrown off by the major glow-up, he casually asks if she is heading out on a trip. Flashing a deeply peaceful smile, she drops the heavy truth. Yeah, she is finally moving on. Chulho freezes up, his eyes locked onto the plastic bag in his hands. Before she can vanish entirely, he totally intercepts, begging her to grab a seat for one final meal. Skipping past her response, he immediately hits the sink, shifting into full chef mode. He pitches the idea of black bean noodles, and she gives a soft, silent nod. He reaches for the quick prep packs, but hits the brakes and pivots. Checking the vibe, he asks if she is rushing, and she confirms she has all the time in the world. Flashing a warm grin, he promises it will only take a couple extra minutes. He completely locks in, violently slamming fresh dough onto the prep station. He is absolutely dead set on crafting this entirely from scratch. Hand-pulled strings normally need time to chill, but tonight, zero time for that. He adapts on the fly, slicing the strands extra thick for that top-tier chewy consistency. With god-level speed, he slides the steaming bowl across the table, leaving the elder completely stunned by his insane prep time. The crazy rich scent overpowers the room, and the visual plating is just next-level gorgeous compared to last time. He posts up in the background, silently observing as she just stares deep into the broth, completely frozen. Out of nowhere, she drops her lore, spilling about her past days grinding on a farm with her bloodline. It was a massive struggle, but those chaotic days were peak happiness for her. Her late husband was an absolute real one. His influence is the whole reason she developed her smooth city dialect. Every single week, they would drag their little grandson downtown to feast on these exact same black bean noodles. Her eyes gloss over, emotionally wrecked by those golden memories that have permanently faded out. Just witnessing the kid devour his food gave them pure joy, keeping them grinning nonstop. But reality hits hard. She literally cannot picture her husband's face anymore, and her grandson's features are completely blurring out. She desperately wants to hold on to them, but the memory wipes keep accelerating, and it is low-key terrifying her. Bam! A tiny voice shrieks out for her dad, shattering the heavy tension. A split second later, a miniature blur sprints across the diner floor, sliding around in the most adorable kitten slippers. Tiny Gule totally crashes into the elder with a massive hug, melting hearts by calling her grandma. Witnessing this pure cuteness, the elder softly requests to share her portion with the toddler. Chulho just smirks, declaring he is about to whip up an exclusive, fresh batch, just for the kiddo. He drops the new plate in front of Gule, leaving the elder absolutely awestruck by this sweet little angel. Catching those happy vibes, the little munchkin hypes up the elder, aggressively demanding that Grandma dig into her own plate. Hyped up by the kid, the elder grips her chopsticks, finally breaking her fast. But right before that first drop hits her lips, she glitches, her gaze totally zoning out into the void. Guel spots the lag and innocently questions why Grandma is ghosting her delicious food. Ignoring the silence, the tiny chaotic energy just dives right into her meal, flexing that her dad's cooking is god tier. That specific visual violently triggers a hidden core memory in the elder's brain. She totally validates the kid's hype and, staring out into the pitch-black abyss, whispers that the dish is genuinely phenomenal. Fast forward to the empty plate aftermath. They wipe both dishes completely clean, and she immediately asks to clear her tab. Catching her standing up, Chulho questions if she is actually heading out so soon. The elder drops a heavy nod. She shoots one final gaze through the glass, stating her midnight train is literal seconds away from departing. Chulho instantly gets the metaphor. Masking his grief with a faint smirk, he addresses the check. He tells her this drop is entirely on the house, making the elder pause in pure confusion. He smooths it over, claiming he always hands out VIP freebies to travelers embarking on massive life quests. Her eyes soften as the underlying message clicks, and she gracefully accepts his final, unspoken goodbye present. She drops 1,000 thank yous, officially signing off and demanding he stay safe out there. Humans are out here speedrunning completely different life tracks, whether it is a dad aggressively grinding to secure his kid's endgame, or a battered elite soldier finally pulling the plug after decades in the trenches, or even a hopelessly devoted guy betting his entire existence on his one true soulmate. But tonight, this lane belongs exclusively to her. Tiny Guel shouts her final farewell, waving violently at her grandma as the cinematic sky literally explodes with glowing shooting stars. Chulho gives her one final send-off. Cut back to the ghostly station, the engine revs, and the locomotive starts rolling out, leaving her completely stranded on the platform. The whistle shrieks. Absolute panic kicks in. She sprints down the concrete, screaming her lungs out, begging the conductor to just hit the brakes for 1 second. She is pushing so hard her shoe literally flies off. Her brain is screaming, wondering why she is even chasing this thing. But she pushes through the burning in her chest, gasping for air, praying for it to stall. Out of absolutely nowhere, a voice cuts through the noise shouting, "Mom!" The old lady freezes in her tracks, totally shell-shocked. Pressed against the train windows, a whole group is frantically waving at her. They keep yelling for their mom. Her eyes widen as she spots her oldest daughter, her middle boy, and her baby. And right smack in the middle, her precious grandson, beaming from ear to ear, hollering out for his grandma. Boom, the fog lifts. Every single lost memory slams back into her brain with crystal clarity. The screeching wheels finally halt, and the heavy metal doors glide open, framing the love of her life. Her husband looks down at her. "My dear," he murmurs, his voice so soothing, confessing just how much he has been aching for her. He tells her he knows she has been through absolute hell, carrying a burden no one should have to bear. Reaching out, he extends a warm, welcoming hand, begging her to finally come home and rest. Tears of pure joy spill over her cheeks as she grabs his hand without a single ounce of hesitation. Snap back to reality. Graveyard setting. The night watchman is sprinting toward her slumped body, screaming her name. He shakes her shoulders, desperate for a pulse, but it hits him fast. She has already crossed over. A bittersweet smile touches his lips. He pieces the puzzle together and just lets the heavy silence take over. His mind drifts back to all those times she would obsessively ask about when the train was arriving. Looks like her ticket finally punched through. But as he pivots away, his eyes lock onto something completely out of place resting on her headstone. A fresh bowl of steaming noodles and some cash sitting right next to it. The ultimate parting gift. Lurking in the shadows, Chulho watches the guard, realizing you absolutely cannot anchor a soul that is ready to dip out. It hits him deep sometimes. Forcing a person to keep breathing is straight-up torture. We switch gears and land right inside the Zenkov headquarters in Seoul. Sang-ho Kim is glued to his desk, mentally stringing together the latest chaos and dropping names on a mental corkboard. His gut is screaming that something insane is brewing downtown, a flex of power way off the charts. This ghost-like energy is flying completely under the radar, making massive moves in the dark. But the wildest plot twist? Whoever is flexing this crazy aura is not giving off villain vibes at all. Then, it clicks. There is literally only one dude on the planet capable of pulling this off. Could the legendary hunter Jaeger actually be back from the dead after a 10-year ghosting session? No way. He literally watched Jaeger yeet himself into a dimensional rift with a boss monster, trading his life to save the squad. Sure, the internet stans think he is out there chilling, but the higher-ups know that was a one-way trip. Well, unless the suits were secretly gatekeeping a legit rank 0 beast. Annoyed out of his mind, Sang-ho tosses his documents into the air like confetti. He is totally stumped. Ever since that messy mine incident, absolutely jacked monsters have been pouring out of the gates. It is giving major calm before the apocalypse energy, and he is sweating it. He shakes it off and decides to tackle the most toxic issue on his plate, snatching up the folder labeled Absolute Nightmare. The red-stamped dossier drops a bomb. Shin Ryu, the little brother of the myth himself. Jaeger. Jump cut to the National Hunter Association. This massive monolith smack in the city center. A nervous aide slides a stack of fresh-out-of-the-oven rookie stats right onto the director's desk. He scans the paperwork, homing in on the top 3 prodigies of this generation. First up is Mi-jin Kim, a Tier 3 support who absolutely bulldozed the Academy rankings. Clocking in at just 17 years old, she is the literal heir to the culinary god who happens to be running with Sang-ho's crew right now. But the boss realizes that squad is already stacked with medics, so he boots her application over to another division. Swipe left to Jumyong Lee, a 20-year-old pyrocaster with insane damage stats. The director greenlights his deployment, but his stomach drops the second he reads the final name. It is the ultimate menace, Shin Ryu, a Tier 2 brawler rocking a hardcore werewolf ability. This crazy talent bagged him the title of Warwolf, and his ceiling is basically non-existent. Red flag 1, he shares DNA with Jaeger. Red flag 2, the crazy kid specifically demanded a drop into the Seodaemon zone. The director rubs his temples, totally drained. This punk is already out here trying to spar with guild veterans. The assistant stammers out that he literally clapped multiple guild heads before casually strolling toward his assigned turf. Furious, the boss drops a curse on the kid, mind blown that anyone still uses brute force to climb the ladder. Cut to a standard afternoon, the concrete jungle is packed with locals rushing everywhere. Cheolho is craving some spicy pork, stir-fry, but his fridge is completely empty. He hits up the local meat market, but his internal alarm bells ring when he notices an absurd stockpile of premium cuts. Flashbacks of those mutant boars from the underground raid hit him, and he low-key panics that they have breached the city walls. He mentally bookmarks the sketchy butcher shop for a midnight investigation. Walking home, a boutique window grabs his attention, specifically a tiny, cute dress. He steps inside, asking the cashier if it would fit a 5-year-old kid. Flashing a soft smile, he admits he is treating a certain little girl, obviously picturing Jiwoo. Out of nowhere, an absolute roar shatters the street noise, demanding the head honcho of the Temple Guild. Enter Shin Ryu, barking at the top of his lungs for some dude named Hyuk Kong to step up and catch hands immediately. Cheolho's ears instantly prick up at the name. It clicks. This is the new captain taking over for the old-timer who stepped down. But before he can even figure out who the blonde kid is, bam, the rookie practically bulldozes right past him. Shin Ryu steps up, chest out, and drops a bombshell on the room. He literally ghosted the association to ride with a guild instead. Cheolho is just standing there, absolutely flabbergasted. He is low-key judging this loud, chaotic new generation. Suddenly, one of the guild guys pops up at the window, completely killing the vibe. He delivers a blunt message. The captain said to pack it up and get the hell out. But Shin Ryu? He doesn't even flinch. A cocky, mocking grin spreads across his face before he just bursts into straight-up villain laughter. He starts running his mouth, claiming the legendary Temple Guild is actually terrified of a fresh face like him. Then boom, a massive shockwave rattles the area. The main event has finally arrived. Enter Captain Hyuk Kang. He steps out, immediately demanding to know who is out here ruining his peace and quiet. Cheolho watches closely, instantly realizing this dude's aura is absolutely insane. Taking one look at the rookie, the captain just rolls his eyes. He literally turns his back, tossing out a cold diss about not wasting oxygen on bottom-tier trash, and tells the kid to scurry on home. That hits a nerve. The rookie fires right back, mocking that a tiger abandoned the throne just for a scrawny fox to take over. You can literally see the captain's patience snap. Catching the captain off guard, Shin Ryu fully launches himself forward, screaming if the so-called leader is actually trying to chicken out. In a blinding flash of steel, the captain's blade is instantly resting right against Shin Ryu's cheek. The air turns freezing cold as he promises to slice that arrogant mouth right off the rookie's face. Instead of backing down, Shin Ryu just smirks. He whispers that things are finally getting fun, right as his entire body starts violently mutating. He blasts off the ground, claws extend, fangs bare. He is completely transformed into a massive werewolf, going all out for the kill. Letting out a deafening roar, he dives straight for the captain's jugular. But before anyone can blink, a blinding streak of purple energy slices through the tension, catching even the captain totally off guard. It is Sang-hoon Kim. He lets out this heavy, exhausted sigh, internally complaining that he literally never gets a single day of peace around here. With a heavy thud, his glowing spear crashes into the pavement, instantly shutting down the brawl and leaving everyone stunned. He barks at them to knock it off right now. Cheol-ho is just chilling on the sidelines, sipping in the drama and thinking about how chaotic youth really is. Just like fresh weeds popping up after a storm, this brand new era of hunters is finally making its move. Fast forward a bit, and those exact three chaotic guys are suddenly standing right in front of the restaurant door, caught completely off guard. Cheol-ho awkwardly waves them in, mentally preparing himself for whatever messy drama is about to unfold. Seeing them covered in fresh bruises, he cautiously asks if they went at it again. Sang-hoon just shrugs, claiming they had a classic fistfight to settle the beef. Surprisingly, the captain gives a respectful nod. He openly admits that veteran experience totally styled on raw muscle, instantly making Cheol-ho super curious. Skipping the pleasantries, the trio crashes at a table, demanding a bottle of soju and some grub. Cheol-ho hypes up the daily special, a legendary stir-fried pork dish. Sang-hoon does not even hesitate and locks it in. The ultimate secret to this meal? Searing massively thick cuts of pork in crackling oil. A top-tier stir-fry needs to be heavily loaded with meat. None of that weak, veggie-stuffed filler. He goes all out, throwing together 5 whole portions just for the 3 of them, dripping in a spicy, mouth-watering garlic and chili glaze. The mountain of steaming pork drops on the table, leaving the rookie absolutely speechless at the massive portion. But the chill vibes? Yeah, they do not last. Shin Ryu lets out an annoyed sigh and just aggressively jams his headphones on. Sang-hoon slaps down his card to cover the tab, tossing the captain the responsibility of dealing with the leftover drama. Cheol-ho waves them off, but he is low-key heated. He busted his back, making 5 giant plates, just for Sang-hoon to dip out looking completely defeated. The rookie finally swallows his pride. He admits defeat and formally asks to join the guild, but the captain just casually pours himself a drink and brutally rejects him, leaving the kid completely stunned. Pouring salt in the wound, he tells the rookie to wake up from his delusions. He warns him to stop acting like his tiny, sheltered bubble is the whole universe. Staring dead into his soul, the captain delivers a harsh reality check. The kid just is not that special. After dropping that absolute nuke of a lecture, he turns on his heel and straight up walks out on them. Standing safely behind the counter, Cheol-ho is genuinely mind-blown by the absolute savage aura he just witnessed. But instead of crying about it, the rookie's eyes totally light up. He thinks that icy rejection was the most badass thing ever. He immediately sprints after the captain, screaming like a fanboy for him to wait up. Taking in the absolute comedy of the situation, Cheol-ho lets out a quiet chuckle. He is already picturing the insane future this wild generation is going to bring. As their voices fade down the street, with the rookie practically begging for a spot on the squad, Cheol-ho's face gets serious. He knows exactly how this world works. As these kids level up, their enemies are going to mutate into something much worse. His gaze drops to a crumpled newspaper tossed on the floor. The bold headline confirms everyone's worst fears portals are ripping open way faster than anyone anticipated. Finally, he turns back to the table, staring at the massive pile of untouched food. He lets out a dramatic sigh, mourning all that elite cooking gone totally to waste. Cut to the break of dawn. Little Gyul yawns and stretches her tiny arms, totally hyped for a brand new day. She glances around and realizes the whole house is dead to the world, snoring away in their beds. A core memory unlocks. Khan made her promise to always scrub her face and get squeaky clean the second she woke up. Suddenly, a glowing water elemental materializes. The little girl happily waves it over for a quick playtime session. The spirit playfully blasts her with a wave of water, giving her this instant, super magical morning shower. The floating liquid totally wraps around her tiny frame, instantly wiping away all the grime and sleepy crust from her adorable face. Flashing a massive grin, she does a happy dance about being fresh and ready to tackle the morning. The elemental literally claps its liquid hands, hyping the kid up for following the rules. Fresh out of her magical bath, she wanders over to Cheol-ho and pokes him to wake up. But the guy is practically comatose. She gently pats his cheek, whispering that he is a good boy too. Catching a glimpse of her brand new dress, she lets out an adorable giggle, super pumped to finally wear her gifted outfit. Now completely dressed for success, she marches down the stairs. Her stomach is already rumbling, making her absolutely obsessed with finding breakfast. But out of nowhere, the air tears apart. A bizarre, blood red. Out of thin air, this glowing rift drops right in front of her. But instead of freaking out, she's actually hyped, casually reaching out to poke the swirling vortex. Big mistake. The second her fingertips make contact, she gets yanked right in, and the portal snaps shut behind her like it was never even there. Cutting away from her empty bedroom, the vibe flips to pure nightmare fuel. A pitch-black, creepy dungeon, where heavy footsteps bounce off cold stone walls. Boom. Kyul and her little water spirit just spawn into the darkness. Her reaction? She straight up yells that it's time to play. Zero hesitation. She's skipping past literal human skulls like they're playground toys. But then, a massive, ground-shaking thud interrupts her fun. She spins around and comes face to knee with an absolute unit of a minotaur, backed up by his monster squad, looking ready to catch a body. Is she terrified? Nope. This little menace just tilts her head and starts mocking their battle cries, absolutely unbothered. Getting pressed over a toddler, the boss points a meaty finger, ordering his goon to smash her. The ugly brute instantly charges, closing the gap. He winds up his massive axe for a lethal swing, but her water elemental ain't having it, rapidly mutating to protect its bestie. It inflates into a colossal tsunami beast, making Kuehl jump up and down with pure hype. With one devastating sweep, the spirit unleashes hell. The tidal wave swallows the entire monster squad whole. Thrashing inside the watery dome, these goons are completely flabbergasted by this insane flex. Even the big boss gets washed. Meanwhile, Kuehl is literally hyping herself up, patting a half-drowned monster on the head like it's a puppy. Treating a deadly beast like a golden retriever leaves the chief shook. He suddenly realizes that taming a spirit this OP means this kid is a top-tier master. His ego bruised, the boss roars that she's a massive threat and needs to be wiped off the map. Fueled by pure rage, he bulldozes forward. He crushes stone pillars into dust, but out of nowhere, a fist punches straight through the solid wall. Enter Cheolho, who violently snatches the boss right by the snout. The monster freezes, entirely paralyzed by fear. Cheolho casually body slams the behemoth into the dirt, while Kuehl happily sprints over, screaming for her dad. Rattled, the giant beast scrambles to figure out who just humbled him. But the second he locks eyes with the dude, his blood runs ice cold. He instantly recognizes the legendary maze Lycas. Cheolho physically yanks him by the horns, while the monster desperately backpedals, stuttering that there's been a huge misunderstanding. Flashing a terrifying death stare, our guy crushes the horn like dry pasta. The monster instantly spills the tea, confessing he dipped out alongside the Demon King. Swearing on his life, the brute claims that after diving through that cosmic rift, he got dumped back into this exact maze a whole 10 years ago, and he's been camping out here ever since. Cheolho demands the rundown on his boss, and the monster admits the Dark Lord went into a deep hibernation. Cheolho's eyes spark with raw energy as he activates a truth-seeking skill. The scan comes back clean, the monster wasn't capping. Shivering, the beast asks if he's here to conquer the demon dimension. Cheolho bluntly drops the bombshell that they are actually on Earth, internally stressing that the Demon King is basically immortal. A flashback hits. To even scratch that Dark Lord, he had to max out 6 different combat classes, teaming up with literal legends like the Dragon and the Ice Emperor. They were mere seconds away from ending him permanently, but thanks to sheer dumb luck, a portal ripped open, letting the big bad slip right through their fingers. Snapping back, he sizes up the Minotaur, definitely not an elite threat, but still a heavy hitter. Suddenly, a super loud stomach rumble cuts the tension. Realizing his kid is starving, he immediately switches to dad mode. He scoops up Kuehl, declaring that it's officially time to bounce. But right before stepping into the exit portal, he pauses, shooting a calculated, lingering glare back at the trembling monster. He casually drops that he has a small side quest for the beast. Hard cut to the human world. Morning sunlight is flooding into his cozy little restaurant. Back on his chef grind, Cheolho is already at the cutting board, slicing up a massive, juicy slab of red meat. Khan strolls in, catching a whiff of that glorious prep work, and asks what's on the menu. But our overpowered dad is completely zoning out. He's just dead staring at a bubbling pot, totally unresponsive. It takes Khan screaming that it's overflowing to finally snap him back to reality. Brushing it off, he announces breakfast is served, adding that Kuehl already crushed her meal and went back to bed. Khan then asks what kind of exotic cut they're eating today. With a smirk, Cheolho claims it's oxtail, vaguely hinting at his little dungeon encounter. Meanwhile, Khan grabs what looks like a wildly mutated veggie. Cheolho casually mentions it's a stress-relieving pepper. Shrugging, Khan takes a massive bite, assuming it's just some magical side dish. Instant regret. The dude literally breathes a pillar of fire, screaming his lungs out about the spice while desperately chugging a gallon of milk. The front door chimes ring out, shifting Cheolho's attention. A super cute girl holding a bouquet steps in, announcing she just launched a brand new shop down the street. She hands over the welcoming flowers, and he politely accepts the gesture. But then, her nose catches the scent of that insane broth. Eyes lighting up, she asks if the diner is open for business. Practically begging for a bowl, she scores an easy yes from our smiling chef. Sweating through his spicy misery, Khan side-eyes the newbie, just wanting to suffer through his meal in silence. The girl immediately hits them with a pout. She starts whining about the random greens left on the counter, but suddenly, her eyes flash with a weird magical aura, locking onto the produce. Out of nowhere, the spicy pepper starts floating mid-air, leaving Khan utterly baffled. Next thing they know, 2 absolute units of onions bounce onto the prep station. Cheolho just stands there watching this fever dream unfold. The veggies literally sprout legs and start sprinting around, while the girl panics and yells that her harvest is escaping. Activating his analytic sight, Cholho quickly clocks that these aren't regular onions, they're mythical mandrakes. It instantly clicks. This random neighbor is a plant regeneration hunter. We're talking an ultra-rare, insanely busted class. Her nature-bending abilities are literally overpowered enough to solo an entire demonic legion. He still totally calls her out on it. Shrinking back, she stammers an apology, claiming just being near veggies literally makes her nauseous. Chiolho lifts one of the bizarre mandrakes, totally thrown off by this whole wild vibe. Right on cue, Gabby struts into the diner, barking out a salad order with total boss energy. Gabby suddenly locks eyes with the flower girl. She immediately drops her nickname, Blossom. Blossom flinches, nodding. Gabby presses her, why is she miles away from her actual turf? Flushing deeply, the girl suddenly blurts out that she got totally booted for a massive fail. She completely froze up against some plant monsters, leaving her partner seriously wrecked. Gabby drops the hard truth, telling her she needs to take absolute accountability. Watching from the sidelines, Chiolho realizes Gabby actually drops some serious wisdom. The veteran hunter then asks if the kid just ghosted her squad to run a flower stand. Blossom defensively snaps back that this is her actual home now. But Gabby hits her with cold reality. Running from your mess will not magically fix anything. That hits deep. Her face burning crimson, Blossom finally nods, admitting she at least needs to step up and apologize for her blunder. She slides out of her seat to cover the tab, but Cheolho steps in with a totally different game plan to clear her debt. He asks if she is holding any cultivation, seeds, and pitches a totally unique barter deal. Instantly hyped, the girl vows to deliver absolute top-tier seeds for him. Suddenly, the front bell jingles. Pushing through the doors, a mysterious dude rocking a sharp suit and a sleek hat steps right into the diner. Blossom gasps. It is literally the legendary Captain Gentleman. As he smoothly greets Gabby, the veteran hunter completely understands why he rocks that exact nickname.